Welcome back, folks, to yet another episode of the Fight Plug podcast. If you're here, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that. Hit like, subscribe, ring the bell so that you don't miss any of our content. And it'll remind you whenever we have new episodes up. You won't miss anything. You'll be in the know. You'll be the smartest guy in the room for the next UFC fight card. We are here to recap what went down at UFC Fight Night Paris between Ciryl Gane and Tai Tuivasa. And once we're done with that, we will get into the nitty-gritty and give our breakdown for UFC 279, Chimaev versus Diaz, which happens this weekend, September 10th, my birthday, by the way, in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. So that's sure to be an interesting one, but we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to cover from this past weekend. I am still recovering from COVID, so I didn't get to see any of the fights live as they were happening. I tried, but I was in and out of a fucking practically a coma. Yeah, like I tried watching some of the Ciryl Gane fight, and I was just like totally in and out. So I had to rewatch the fights later on, but now I am up and caught up on everything that went down between Ciryl Gane, Tai Tuivasa, Whitaker, Vettori, Imavov, Joaquin Buckley. So that's probably about as far down as we'll get through the card. I haven't even taken the time to say welcome, Brandon. Thanks for being here again with me. How's it going, man? How are you doing?
But you did share your ailments. You did share your birthday. You did share your own. So that's cool.
We've just been going through a lot, man. It's been a roller coaster for me this weekend, and it sounds like it's been a roller coaster for both of us a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And we got jacked. One of our memes, our fucking meme template got fucking stolen. So
yes.
I don't know. Should we take the high road? Should we be like by not give them any squeeze by a page that should not be named, or
the 38 people that are going to watch this? No, we're not going to share our platform with them.
Because if we named the perpetrators, well, the unfortunate reality is they'd lose 38 followers, and it's going to be a blow to them. So we wouldn't want to fucking be vindictive like that. Anyways,
no, it's fine. It always comes out, and what goes around comes around, boys.
Every dog has his day.
Yeah.
Ciryl Gane defeats Tai Tuivasa by in round 3 by KO, TKO punches. Really got it done with the kicks, though. The first round of this fight really played out how I think a lot of us expected it to. Ciryl Gane controlling the distance, using his superior footwork and head movement, and really striking from range, and just not giving Tai Tuivasa any looks, any opportunity to close the distance. But Tai Tuivasa is still game, though. I mean, once we get into the second round, we'll talk about just how game he is. But even in the first round, some of those like check hooks that he was throwing, or some of the wild haymakers that he was trying to use to close the distance to touch Ciryl Gane up, they were getting very close. I was even watching them as it was happening, and I was like, okay, Ciryl Gane should have this in the bag. It looks like the movement is working for him, but those Tai Tuivasa haymakers are getting a lot closer than I would like if I'm here. Like if I got money on Ciryl Gane. By round 2, that haymaker landed, and we saw Ciryl Gane got put on his ass for the first time in his career. For the first time in his relatively short career, he's now 11-1. And Ciryl Gane said, I mean, for my money, he looked knocked out, but very momentarily. He recovered instantly, though. Immediately dove for the legs, and got his bearings about him, and then he was back to standing and trading with Tai Tuivasa. And the second round played out incredibly wild. Like the turns in momentum, the changes in the momentum were insane. In the post-fight interview, Ciryl Gane said that he was actually knocked out, like he admitted. And maybe there might be a little bit lost in translation there, and he might have meant to say knocked down. But he said that, he was standing in front of him, and the next thing he sees is Tai Tuivasa's legs. So he just decided to grab them. So if you ask me, if between the time when he absorbed that punch and his ass hit the ground, I think Ciryl Gane was talking to his ancestors, probably talking to God. He wasn't there. It's pretty crazy. So very impressive for him to be able to recover that quickly and turn things around. And honestly, and you'll tell me if you think I'm wrong here, but I still think Ciryl Gane won that round. Like, he got flash knocked down, but everything that he did from that point on to change the momentum and turn everything around in that round, like, I think he had Tai Tuivasa closer to to losing than he ever was, even in that second round. Would you agree, disagree? What do you think?
Points wise, he won the round. If you go off of like damage inflicted, he for sure lost. But I think that he super outpointed Tuivasa in that first round. If that's what you mean, or if that's what you're asking me, like how I saw that.
Oh, I was saying in the second round when
in the second round with the knockout.
When Cyril, even in the round where Cyril got dropped, it to me when he turned.
I'm sorry, I understood. Yeah, no, he still he won the second round. I was thinking we were talking about that first round because someone was saying I had read something about they thought Tuivasa won that first round, and no, and to answer your question on the second round, no, and that's how far it sucks to say, but like the talent gap was, and it was like so striking. The talent gap was like so. It was just so like everything, physique, how the guy moved, the way he was calibrating, and that's the thing about heavyweight fighting. It's like some of these guys, and like heavyweight fighting has, I think Cyril Gane is what it should be, and what it probably will be. You know, when our kids are watching it, it'll be like, yeah, they all move like this. But for whatever reason, heavyweight MMA, so like there's such a disparity between like a guy like Tuivasa, who's a legit championship contender and deserves it by all means, but you look at him and the way he does it, he still has a like Tank Abbott, like strip club parking lot fight kind of vibe to him. Where Cyril Gane is like, oh, I should probably be playing soccer, but I just like I'm in this weird in between, so I'm gonna do this. And he just looks amazing, and it's kind of like where the sport should be as far as like heavyweights is, or it's getting to,
right?
But he's just like the evolved version of it. And I'm sorry to like to answer your question, yeah, he even though he got flash knocked out in the second round, yeah, he won that round.
Yeah, I can't disagree. Like I mean, shit. I said it first. Yeah, but he turned it around. He lands like
I can't disagree with that amazing point you just made, Brandon. Very well put.
Thanks for agreeing with me.
The point first. Yeah.
So yeah, he turns it around. He lands like 3 heavy body kicks in a row on the same side. Follows it up with a nasty jump knee into the body. Goes with like a shovel hook or an uppercut to the body, and was just punishing him, man. And like we saw all that body work really added up later on, and I saw a compilation of every strike to the body that Cyril Gane threw throughout the course of the fight, and that teep kick to the midsection really fucking it's so much damage. We saw that it was Tai Tuivasa couldn't hide it anymore. Like he couldn't just
like
tank
straight
those.
To the organs. Yeah, like that was crazy.
He was keeling over on himself right before the fight ending.
He looked like he needed to shit. He was like gonna shit his guts out.
Cyril Gane was literally kicking the shit out of him.
Yeah. Oh man.
And all of that work to the body. I mean, the damage was accumulating. If Cyril Gane was a truly cruel human being, he probably could have just said, like, I'm going to keep fucking kicking this guy in the body. So he literally can't stand up. I want to make sure he's pissing blood. But, you know, obviously, Tai Tuivasa couldn't continue to take that kind of punishment to the body. So he let his guard down, and that's when Cyril Gane found the opening in the stand-up, lands a really clean right hand that puts Tai Tuivasa on skates, and gets the finish. Super dominant performance. Francis Ngannou didn't quite agree with how dominant it was. I know he was interviewed afterwards, and he said, like, it was an entertaining fight. It was a great performance, but you know, I'm kind of the champion right now, so it's kind of hard for me to find that impressive. Do you think Cyril Gane was? I mean, do you think Francis Ngannou was sipping the haterade a little bit? Like,
oh yeah,
he
wasn't sipping it. He was on his third bottle by the time he got to that comment that he made. I mean, that you can't tell me that that's not fucking impressive as fuck. He could have been out there just hitting bags, looking like that. Just the size of him, the shape he's in, his fluidity of motion, and then taking a shot from a guy like Tai Tuivasa and being able to like maintain clarity into like how to get out of this and how to keep his wits, and then go on to just fucking, it didn't stop anything that he had to do,
Mm-hmm.
and or anything that he wanted to do, it didn't hinder him any one bit. Whereas like any normal human being, even, I mean, even guys with the strength, I mean, fuck, what did he, was he on like 5 straight stops or something like that? Like that's
Tai
how he got
Tuivasa?
to,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yep.
that's how he got to where he's at, dog, like ending careers. And this, I, it really could have been bad if he wouldn't have done what he did, where he just like, you saw it, like when he went down, his neck went back, and he just went straight for the legs. He got him, and then after that, you saw him kind of putting Ty up against the up against the cage,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of, you know, getting his wits about him, and then just went right back to his game plan, which is even more impressive than
Yeah.
anything I saw out of all of it. Because I know he can strike like that,
Mm-hmm.
and he can strike like that against better strikers than Tuivasa. Uh, I guess maybe the threat of not having to wrestle made it a little more pronounced. Like it was easier for him to do that. There really wasn't as much. He could do it with more reckless abandon because there was no wrestling threat. Which was, you know, with a guy like Cyril Gane, they just styled on him.
Mm-hmm.
They put it out there to style so that he can really do what he did. Like the UFC knew what they wanted, and they got what they wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, Tai
So-
Tuivasa ended up being a little bit of a sacrificial lamb in this instance. Like we all kind of knew it since this fight was
Yeah.
booked. I mean, but to be fair, Ty's got to fight who's in front of him. You know what I mean? He
Right.
he ascended through the division really quickly, especially with that knockout win over Derek Lewis. It's really a shame that some of the guys, and I don't want to spend too much time fucking complaining about them like we have previously, but some of the guys at the top of the division who are just kind of sitting around in limbo. We don't know what's going on with Stipe. We don't know what's going on with Jones. We don't know what's going on with Ngannou. Ideally, you know, I would have loved to have seen Cyril Gane fight like Stipe or something like that.
Yeah.
Or Tai Tuivasa should have been fighting Stipe, and Cyril Gane should be fighting John Jones. You know what I mean? There's like,
Yeah.
we kind of killed two potential contenders, you know, or one contender to get, you know, Cyril Gane a fight, because none of the other guys ahead of him are active right now. They're all kind of
Yeah.
sitting on the shelf. And I mean, I'm sure probably before the end of the year we'll know where things stand with the sitting champion, and we'll kind of
Well,
get a little
Gane
bit
broke
more.
his hand, right? So it don't matter. He's not even gonna be able to train until January, right?
Yeah, he'll be out of the picture for a little bit. And I mean, I know Ngannou had his surgery back in March, so it's not like I was like expecting him to rush back anytime soon. But they seem hell bent on making sure that they do that Stipe Jones fight, because I don't know. I guess if I'm Dana White, they probably want to make sure that Jones gets a W, and I think Stipe is probably one of the safer bets at the top of that division right now to get
if he had a
John.
hedge,
Yeah, because if you look at Stipe's previous fights, you know, the wins that he's made his heavyweight run on, they're all over the last generation of heavyweights. I was looking at it, and I think we've talked about this again too, but it's like most of the guys that he has wins over the last like 5 or 6 years of the heavyweight division, none of them are in the heavyweight division anymore.
Yeah,
Some of them
it's
aren't
not
fighting.
even-
Yeah.
Some of them are like regular 9 to 5 jobbers now, kind of deal. So it's just like, yeah.
I believe the only ones are. I believe the only one that's still active in the UFC is Andrei Arlovsky, and I'm going to talk about
Yeah.
that. But I do love what we learned about Cyril Gane in this fight, because for a guy with a style like his, we want to see that chin tested. You know what I mean? Like we'd like to see
big time.
how he's able to absorb that kind of damage, how he deals with it, what his instincts
point,
are like when he's, you know, put on skates a little bit. And he passed the test with flying colors. He was not flustered by that strike at all. Like as soon as he kind of was able to make sense of where he was, he immediately did like the best thing possible. I think I saw, well, James Krause in particular, but more like closely, like after that fight had wrapped up between Cyril Gane and Francis Ngannou, I saw a lot of people taking shots at Francis Ngannou's fight IQ because of the pulling for a leg lock in the fifth round of that fight, and
that was very strange.
And it was a bad a bad call. Shouldn't have done that. You know, I'm sure in hindsight, Cyril Gane, like with the benefit of hindsight, if you obviously do it differently. But I've seen a lot of people saying like, And I was mostly surprised by James Krause saying it, that it's like Cyril Gahn would be the champion right now if his IQ was worth a shit. And I'm like, whoa,
Whoa.
worth a shit. Like, the
Yeah.
man's made one mistake, virtually pretty much one mistake in his like 4-year MMA career. And we're going to talk about his IQ being worth a shit. Like, I don't know about that, man. Come on now.
Yeah. I mean, it's a clickbait economy right now. Like,
That is true.
You say some wild shit to get eyeballs on you, whether you're right or wrong or whatever. We're talking about it, so that's why you did it.
That's true. That is true. But I think I hope that you're right. Like, maybe more of the heavyweight division will hopefully look like Cyril Gahn, like when our kids are watching. But yeah, until there's more of a path to making big paydays, I feel like the fucking super athletes like Cyril Gahn are probably still going to gravitate towards the NFL and basketball and stuff. But
Yeah.
if we can get more guys that look like him and can move like him and just have the athletic mindset like him too, because like he's always insisted that this is all just competition. He doesn't take anything personal, and it shows in his personality. The dude's fucking chipper all the time. He's like full of laughs and everything. He's super lighthearted. Doesn't like play into like shit talk or trash talk or anything like that.
Basically, big cock energy on him.
Big,
got a
massive dick
monster
energy.
cock energy on him. Like,
Yeah.
I'll pound out your girl's back walls. Leave me the fuck alone.
Don't have a worry in the world, brother. I'll fuck your mom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So and I think that kind of mentality in this game of fighting is underrated. I think a lot of people like to see the guy who's like fucking. I think everyone likes to see the guy who has the mentality of Ion Kutalaba, and a guy who acts like that, who's just fucking desperate for any opportunity to walk across the cage and get in his opponent's face, even while Bruce Buffer's announcing him. And it's like, I think that's a lot more telling about a guy who is making up for something. But still turned out to be a super entertaining fight because of that second round. A lot of people were saying, contender for fight of the year. Do you agree?
No. We do this every week.
Do we?
Is this fight of the? No, not us. I'm talking about just the MMA community in general.
Yeah.
It's like, that's fight of the fucking year. We never seen anything. It's like, yeah, we have. We saw it last week, or we saw it the week before, or So, it was definitely a really good fight. But I wouldn't say it was like the fight of the year. It's just because it's heavyweights, because they move. It was heavyweights, and it wasn't so much of a heavyweight it wasn't so much of like a what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't like a Tank Abbott type of heavyweight fight, which was what we get quite a bit.
The typical heavyweight meta where things get sloppy,
like a brawler
and
type of shit. Yeah, and they're just like bleeding, and they're just like
Bigfoot versus Mark Hunt.
Yeah, kind of shit.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's definitely a good fight. I would probably say by the time we get to January and we roll back, like, you look at your like Sarukians and Gamrots, or you look at some of like the undercard shit that we saw with that Cajun dude who was like talking and all weird, and like you look at fights like that and like that's a real fight.
Yeah.
This one was great, and one guy definitely styled out and had some issues.
One guy. Mm-hmm.
But you gotta have two.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think there were a lot of factors contributing, like, that added to the atmosphere of this event that made it kind of easy to call this a potential like fight of the year candidate, because for one, Tai Tuivasa is a darling. Like, he's a fan favorite for sure.
Yeah.
So I think people saw the knockdown, and that is enough parity for people to pop off, or some people who potentially had money on Tai Tuivasa because that was a pretty fucking sweet like plus 400 like betting line.
Yeah.
Got excited there, and for them that was like, okay, there's some interesting. It's not a complete shutout, but aside from one punch, it was a complete shutout.
And there, and like we said, like that one punch didn't even really affect I would have to go back and look at I would be interesting to look at the judges' scorecard, because I know like on Reddit and all these other forums, they'll post like the official scores, which are like super interesting. So like the Brandon Moreno Kai Kara France, where it was like basically a comeback fight, like a comeback knockout that Moreno had, because he was losing in the on the scorecard. So it'd be interesting to see how that was scored. But yeah, even in that case, it didn't look like it really mattered that much. Like it probably would have been a 9-9 round or something like that if it really pushed him to shove, you know.
I'm seeing if I could pull up the official scorecards for it right now and see if they'll even show it. Da, da, da.
But
Interesting.
I
They're
mean,
not showing the score for the second round, but I don't know why
yeah,
they wouldn't, because the second round that we
was
finished
pretty
is
much
that
the
happened in
only
round three.
one. Yeah.
Because everyone gave the first round to Cyril Gane, and then nobody has the fight scored on the second card. Or maybe I'm looking at this wrong. Weird. Oh no, my bad. That's the fucking wrong scorecard. That was the Stephanie Edgar fight. I was.
Oh yeah, that one didn't. Yeah.
Anyways,
Another good grappling display there.
Robert Whittaker, Marvin Vettori. Whittaker gets it done by 3-round unanimous decision. Not a whole lot to really report on. I would say Marvin Vettori probably underperformed. I was expecting him to do a bit better than this. I certainly wasn't expecting him to win, but there was a moment when we were giving our breakdown when I was kind of picturing a way that Marvin Vettori can kind of get a close upset. I kind of thought that like his offensive grappling or like some of his clinch work would be a bit more of a factor, but he just could not close the distance on Robert Whittaker. I know, I mean, like I wasn't watching the fight as it was happening. My buddy Mike said he gave round 1 to Vettori. So when I went back and watched the fight, I was like, okay, let's see what this round 1 looked like. And there's just nothing there. And credit to Marvin Vettori for like everybody's been calling him a blockhead, like, and as a term of endearment, like leading up to this fight and afterwards, because that's kind of like what you'd have to focus on for how he'd have a chance in this fight. The fact that like Marvin Vettori is like otherworldly tough. He's super hard to put away.
He is.
And is a guy who just doesn't stop coming forward. He's a bully style fighter. Hard, like he's going to make it a tough fight. A tough fight out for anyone. Like we'd mentioned, both of these guys, their most recent losses, their only 2 losses before this fight, you know, for the last, I don't know how many years, were 2 losses each apiece to Israel Adesanya. But Robert Whittaker, I would say in the first round, it almost looked like he was expecting to play a little bit more of his counterpuncher type of game and waiting for Marvin Vettori to come forward with punches so that he can kind of like find his openings, find his counters. And Vettori just seemingly would not like even attempt to close the distance. And I think it's because he can't. I think it's because he's bad. And I know I said some shit about him in our breakdown, where I kind of like compared some of his like strikes when he's moving forward to Juliana Pena, and I'm not going to take it back. I was looking forward to him.
It was there. I was looking for it, and I found it.
I was looking. I was hoping to see more of it, so I can do my Leonardo DiCaprio like sit up and be like, there it is.
Yeah.
And I think Marvin Vettori knew like, okay, the game in this fight for me, if I'm going to find any success, it's certainly not going to be like running face first into Robert Whittaker's counter punches. And he didn't. And then round 2, Whittaker just decided like, okay, I'm going to bring the fight to you then. And so I think it worked out pretty well for us to get a good fight out of Whittaker, because we've seen him kind of put on some more tepid performances recently against like I think about it, his fight with Darren Till, like how fucking it was a really, really boring fight. Both guys really respecting each other's power way too much. And in this case, Robert Whittaker goes on the offensive, becomes a bit more of a sniper, finds a home for that right kick where he landed a few times clean on Marvin Vettori. And like we mentioned about Marvin's toughness, he wouldn't go away. What were your biggest takeaways from this fight? Like what does this tell you about like how things should be moving forward for Whittaker or Vettori? Obviously there was the talk about Whittaker potentially going up. How do you see things playing out?
It was crazy. I had watched every fight, like from early prelims up to that point, and it got to like the announcements, like the fighter announcements, and then when Bruce Buffer was introducing him, when you just saw like Robert Whitaker kind of like stand up and like put his chest out, you're just like, whoa, fuck, like what the fuck? This is Robert Whitaker. It just felt way different than any of the other fights that we had just watched, or I had just watched. And it was like, this should be pay-per-view. It felt like a pay-per-view. Like I got that feeling where you get a little bit nervous. You're like, why am I nervous? I'm watching this from my living room right now. And he just has that vibe.
Yeah.
That he has that everything about him is like he's a champion. And it's like, this is a 3-round fight. Like I felt like I paid money to watch this. I would pay money. And he's just a different person. You can just tell. He's like uncommon. You know, all these other guys that are out there are fucking wild. They're just fucking world plus athletes, some of the greatest athletes on the planet, the greatest fighters, and this guy's like levels above those guys. And
another guy with big dick energy off the charts.
Oh, like, big time. Yeah, huge. And it was just like it just completely changed the like you're just like when you see him and then you see him getting ready, you're just like, oh, this is And it just I think I made a comment to you. I didn't know that you weren't watching it at the time. I thought you were watching it. My big takeaway was that he's just like a perfectly trained, like he was built for fighting. He was made to fight, and then he trains hard to fight, and then he's very smart and he's very intelligent when he's in there, and then carries out what he has to do. He's just a fucking robot. He's like a fight robot. In that first round, if there was any, he was just calibrating, and he was just barely missing. He missed a right kick, and it was like right there, and I was like, oh, that's not going to miss later on. Like I hope Marvin doesn't let him do that again, because it just missed, and he was missing with a couple of straights. He was just glancing on some body shots, and it's like, whoa, he's going to like get out of the way, like get out, and then you just saw him, and he's like, okay. The next time I'm going to move a little bit to the right. I'm going to move a little bit to the left. There was absolutely nothing Marvin Vettori could have done to stop that. And thank God for him. And then what was crazy was in the third, he just goes, well, I'm going to take you down now. Check this out. And he just like took him down. It was like the most gorgeous fucking takedown. And he just took him down, fucking ground and pounded him, improved his position, and ended in a plus position. And it was like every single part of that fight is a fight fucking robot. Like if AI could create a fighter, that it would be very, very close to Robert Whitaker. And then he has that bladed stance, that karate style in and out stance, which if it's not good, it's bad. And you don't like it can be very bad for people. But for guys like him or early Wonder Boy, it looks great, and so he's been able to maintain that and put that in an MMA context, and it's just so gorgeous to watch that. And the way he was switching stances, the way he angles his punches, how he makes what I don't think a lot of people, like a casual person, sees is his angle creation off of that bladed stance and off of that kind of in and out. The way he creates these angles on these guys is like that's super high level to where like it's unfathomable. There's maybe a handful of people that really understand what he's doing in the moment, and I doubt his coaches even really understand how he does that. Like I'm sure they kind of like want him to, but I think when you get in that moment, you're put in the cage with another killer. There's really no way to explain what he does. You just kind of have to watch it, and that's what I saw.
I also love how much of a because of that stance, how much of a distinct style that he has too. Like Robert Whitaker is one of the few fighters where I feel like I could always recognize him, even if I can just see like the fight in silhouettes.
The silhouette, yeah.
Exactly. Like it's like, oh, that's so clearly Robert Whitaker, and like even the commentary kind of touched on it too. It's like you kind of know what you're gonna get with Robert Whitaker. Like it's things that he does so exceedingly well, but it doesn't matter if you know what you're gonna get. Like you know he has that roundhouse kick.
It's Outback Steakhouse, dude. The bloomin' onion is always fucking good. Like no matter fucking what, like you know it. And then like you see it, that's a bloomin' onion. I'm gonna go ahead and eat it. Probably not the best appetizer on the game right now, but I know it's gonna be fucking top fucking notch, and you're gonna fucking score some twat afterwards because it's gonna impress the fuck out of everybody. They're gonna be like, oh, bloomin' onion, and they're like, no, try it, it's so good, and they're like, whoa, what the fuck? Who
Who from this middleweight division do you think is ready to be served up a blooming onion in the form of Robert the Reaper Whitaker, though? Because he's in a difficult position now where he's just like
yeah.
like yeah.
It would have been cool to see him and Pereira fight or Pereira fight. That would have been I think that would, but they just rushed the Izzy deal.
They had to manufacture that.
Yeah, they
matchup.
They had to make hay while the sun's shining. So like they're only getting, and Pereira's getting older and older.
And credit to them for pulling it off.
Bigger.
You know, we mentioned it like in the recap to his last fight too. It's just like, man, they've tried to do that with other fighters so many times in the UFC.
Yeah.
And things just don't work out because you just can't control the outcome of fights. But yeah, in this
can't control anything, guys' actions, the way guys, things that happen off, injuries, everything. They were just like, they go without a net sometimes, and sometimes the guy falls and there's just no net there.
Yeah.
And they did it again and it fucking worked. I would have loved to see Pereira and Whitaker do it though. I really would have. Unfortunately, we probably won't. Hopefully we do. That would be cool, you know. But man, yeah, who's really there? I mean,
I think it's one where he's definitely going to have to probably sit on his hands for a little bit and see how things play out with that that fight, because obviously if Israel Adesanya gets the win, I mean, there's very few cases where it's been a guy's like so the clear-cut number two to where people, like we just saw it earlier this year with Max Holloway, where it's like, dude, we've seen him drop two to the champ already, but he's just so undeniably the next guy in line. So he's very, very similar to Max Holloway's predicament in the featherweight division. But looking at the rankings right now, as for guys who aren't booked, who he hasn't fought in this division, I don't believe Robert Whitaker's fought Sean Strickland, and I know Sean Strickland's fight that he had booked recently is no longer happening, so he doesn't have a fight. After that, you'd have to start getting to like number 9, number 10 for a guy in the top who he hasn't fought, who like already doesn't have another fight booked, and that makes sense. So yeah, it's a tough one, and it makes me understand why there was that potential talk of Whitaker potentially going to 205, but he himself kind of like swatted some of that down. He said it's like people were kind of taking that out of context and truth, and it also like kind of fucking threw dirt on something that I wanted to say, which is that rather than him going to 205, what would excite me so much more is if he found a way to go back down. If he went back to welterweight, because dude, give me Whitaker versus Covington all fucking day.
Dude, yes.
I would be so much more excited.
I didn't bring that. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't want to be the dumbass to say that, because I knew he had some rough cuts right at welterweight, and it kind of was messing with him physically, and I didn't want to be the one
to say.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
But
but now that you did, I'm going to go ahead and agree with you. So I mean, there's two of us here. I guess I would was the pussy that didn't fucking say it. But
I mean, it was for a reason though.
That'd be great. Yeah. That would be great. I don't think he would.
No, I
just think he's in the part of his career where he doesn't have to. Why?
He doesn't have to. Well, no, and he clarified too, and it was in the post-fight scrum after this fight with Vettori too, where he mentioned that some people were taking the whole middle light heavyweight move out of context, but the way he explained it was that like he can't go back down. He said it's literally not an option. So I was like, okay, well there goes my dream of welterweight Robert Whitaker again.
Him and Usman would be so fucking good too.
It would be great. I don't think there's any fight at like the top 10 of welterweight that I wouldn't be all like wet over. Like, dude, hands of steel, Jeff Neal, let's fucking do it, dude.
Oh yeah.
But so he said like the only way that he can go is up. It's just it's kind of fucked up that he's right at that point where the divisions start to get a little squirrely, and it's no longer just a 10 pound weight difference, and he just doesn't have the frame for light heavyweight either. I mean, I'd still watch any fight that Robert Whitaker is booked in, even if it's at light heavyweight. So like we'll still make it happen. We'll still be there watching. But
one of the very few guys that I would pay money to watch. No problem at all. I'll pay money to watch him.
Marvin Vettori a little bit back to the drawing board for him. I'm not going to say we should like match make for him moving forward. That's a guy who I think could probably benefit with a move up to light heavyweight.
Yeah,
I think that's probably something he should consider before
he has
Robert
the frame
Whittaker.
for it. He's a big guy.
I mean, he pretty much already fought Paulo Costa and beat him there at light heavyweight.
You're right.
And that's another guy who I would have pegged that's like, yeah, put that guy at light heavyweight. There's no problem with that at all.
Right.
But I think that's probably another move he's probably not going to do either, because he's another guy who also has a vested interest in watching how this Israel Adesanya Alex Pereira fight plays out, because Alex Pereira gets that win and Adesanya decides that he wants to go up to light heavyweight for some reason, or that he wants to take some time off, then the door's open again. I think Marvin Vettori can try and talk his way into that fight, and that is a it's hard to say this after this recent performance, but that's a potentially winnable fight for Marvin Vettori if he can stick to the game plan. If he can do what he did to Jack Hermanson and stick to that game plan and try and implement that on Alex Pereira, we could still potentially see Marvin Vettori being a UFC middleweight champion, which is crazy to say, but yeah, man, he's got that dog in him.
I really think the UFC wants to see something. If they don't get an outright just style bender, just completely outmatching Pereira on there, I do think they'd want to see like Whittaker and Pereira go at it. That'd probably be what they would want, like a pretty good insurance policy, if things go south with that.
I like your mention of it. The term insurance policy, that's going to definitely apply later on when we're breaking down UFC 279.
Yeah.
But for real quick, before we finish up with UFC Paris, Nasruddin Imavov versus Joaquin Buckley. We'll touch on this fight a little bit too. This is another one that I watched, or I rewatched, because I was really excited for Nasruddin Imavov. I think he's one of the prospects I'm more excited for at middleweight. He climbed to 12-3 with his win over Joaquin Buckley. I thought that it wouldn't be as close. I was kind of thinking that Nasruddin Imavov would kind of style on him or probably find more success on the ground. I think I might have picked Imavov on verdict by submission. I was chasing points. Definitely not saying that it should have been like the most likely outcome, but I thought that there was a possibility there, and he did show he was controlling Joaquin Buckley on the ground for a little bit too, so I was like, oh, this is going to happen. It didn't. Joaquin Buckley is more game than I gave him credit for, and like you mentioned, it really looked like in that last round, like he really responded to his corner and left everything in the ring. I don't think either guy's stock drops very much from this fight, but it's also not like the most marquee fight either. I think a lot of people are going to remember this one from looking it up on the Fight Finder, and they're not necessarily going to know that Joaquin Buckley is as game as he is. But I think the sky's the limit for Nasruddin Imavov. I think he's an interesting prospect. Great, yeah. I think he's refreshing amount. He has a refreshing amount of grappling for the division, which I think is going to be important for anybody who's going to have success here at middleweight moving forward, because there's a lot of kind of unitasker type guys or specialist type guys, or just not enough guys who have enough in the grappling defense. I'll say that much, because you don't need to be a hot shot grappler in mixed martial arts. It's great. It's awesome if you are. It's a fucking big feather in your cap to have that kind of weapon in your toolbox. And think of like the Charles Oliveira type of fighters, where like it's literally saved them before, like when you've been in trouble, and you know that's sort of like kind of where you'd want to see that. But I think like I'm almost as much excited for his defensive grappling, because that's what I think that's one of the biggest difference makers in this division. For if there is another like fucking phenom grappler who comes up too, like you're gonna need that too.
Yeah. And those guys rise quick. When they come, they rise quick. They burn hot, and they jump the rankings because they can just make other guys look bad. So good point. When you're one of those guys, I think it's easier. It's just easier to earn submission of the night bonuses, because it's less like you can be the one guy to pull off a fucking Peruvian necktie on a fight card. Nobody else is gonna
do it like have a Peruvian necktie. Like
Right.
versus you can get a highlight reel KO. There's probably going to be 3 or 4 other highlight reel KOs on any given card.
Yeah,
so.
any given card, someone can pull something off. Even someone who's not really known for a KO can kind of do one, or a front kick or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like if you can do a really fucking complicated choke out of a kind of dicey situation and you can just pull something off,
Mm-hmm.
it looks way different, and it's just way more, I guess, refreshing to see sometimes when you get those. So you made a great point there, dude.
Always do. Joaquin Buckley. What do you what does this fight tell you about Joaquin Buckley? This is a guy who's very known.
It tells me he is who he is, man. We're going to see a lot of these fights from him, and some of them he'll win, some of them he won't. It's just going to be for every 2 wins, he's going to have a loss. For every 3 wins, he's going to have a loss. It's like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back with that guy. I feel like it's going to be. That's just how I see it. We've seen fighters like him, like those super explosive spring guys that just fucking, they jump out of the building. They can do everything they can do literally everything, but there's just something missing there,
Mm-hmm.
There's just something missing there.
Joaquin Buckley's fights have been kind of tough for me to call. I feel like I don't really have a gauge on how good he actually is. I feel like what it's kind of worked out for me lately is, do I know the guy that he's fighting, like that he's booked against? And if I do, he's probably going to lose. And if I've never heard the guy who's fighting, it's probably pretty safe. He generally tends to win them. I don't know. I don't mean to frame that to make it sound like I have my ear to the ground for prospects or anything like that. But yeah, I feel like whether or not I'm picking for or against Joaquin Buckley has a lot more to do with his opponent than what Joaquin Buckley himself brings into the cage and the weapons that he has, which are really effective weapons too. And I was complimentary of him in this fight too. Like I sent you a few messages like, Joaquin Buckley seemingly has fucking springs in his feet. Like the man literally seems like he leaves the ground and leaps into every punch that he throws. And I do like that he's a fighter who will recognize or will listen to his corner when they're telling him, like, you are behind in this fight. You are losing this fight. You need to go out in this 3rd round and chase the finish. Like, it's non-negotiable. You can go out there and do the same thing you've been doing and lose and get half of your paycheck and fucking stand there when the decision's being read and have this stupid face look on your face like you're not sure if you won or lost. You can play that stupid game, or you can go out there and leave it all in the cage and try and kill that guy. And that's what Joaquin Buckley did. So I will always give him credit for that, because one thing that will get you removed from my list of fighters that I like and appreciate really, really quickly is just being a guy who's so very obviously behind on the cards and just not
reduced to your fate,
and just
okay,
not trying. Yeah. So,
and you know what, dude, you swayed me, because I shouldn't be that like blasé about it, where it's just like, yeah, whatever, dude, see him a million times, that kind of deal. Like, that's not true. It's almost frustrating in a way, because he just looks, by all accounts, to be like a champ. He looks like he could be a champion. Like, if you were to tell me, if I had never watched MMA before, and you showed me a Joaquin Buckley splash reel, and then you go, hey, he's a world champion, multiple time world champion, best on the planet, I'd be like, yes, that makes a lot of sense, sure. But there's just, I guess, when you watch MMA as much as we have, especially as much as I have in the last year, and I mean my whole life, you can just always tell there's like just something that's just not, you can't put your finger on it. And hopefully he finds it and then it puts it all together. But he's not limited. There's no lack of talent. There's no lack of natural God-given ability. It's just, what is it? Sometimes it's just that last little piece to a puzzle, and once they find it, they can just go, and hopefully he can. But he's always going to be there. They're always going to book him.
I love the example that you provided about, like, if you didn't know anything about MMA and you just started watching, and someone showed you a Joaquin Buckley highlight, like, and said, "Yeah, this guy's the champ of the fucking world. He could beat anybody." And like, I can see that. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
like if you
definitely.
showed me a Melvin Manhoef highlight, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, this guy
This
obliterates
is the
everybody
greatest
he
fighter to
fights.
ever walk the planet.
Looks like
Yep.
it. Mhm.
Sure. Sure. They bring him in on a leash.
And I mean, and that's a specific comparison because I think that's the way that Joaquin Buckley throws everything into his strikes when he's
Yeah.
really like
And that's
emptying the gas
yeah.
tank.
I
Very
see like
shades
a
of
Paul
Melvin
Daly.
Manhoef. Yeah.
I see like a Paul Daly. I see a Melvin Manoff. Yeah, that's what I see when I see Joaquin Buck. I think he's somewhere in between. He's a little closer to the Melvin Manoff um, portion of the spectrum than he is to the Paul Daly portion of it. Um, but I see that when I see Joaquin Buckley. Those are the two guys. Like more so Paul Daly, I guess, as far as like career trajectory. Where it's like, why wasn't he? Like he was so close to being the champ, or why wasn't he like? Why didn't he have a pretty long title reign, or at least like defend?
Mhm.
And it's like you just don't really know sometimes.
I think my worry for Joaquin Buckley is that he's kind of got a skill set right now. I'm not saying that it can't grow. It certainly can, and it probably will. But right now, he's got a skill set where I fear that once he starts to lose his physicality,
Yeah,
then he's not going to have. Yeah,
that rug gets pulled out fast, and it just looks off fast. So
yeah.
he's like one of those. He's flying real close to the sun right now.
Where there's we've there's other guys we know who have certain skill sets where okay you can be not the fastest guy in the division anymore, and these things are still going to work for you because
Look at
of the way
the guy. There's a guy fighting this weekend, Johnny Walker, who is just like that, bodied up, fucking athletic as fuck, and then something just goes away, and it's like, what the fuck you're not even the same person.
Yeah, you cannot be a glass cannon in that division. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And Joaquin Buckley is certainly not a glass cannon either. So yeah.
Oh
just to
no,
be sure.
no.
But
It was really interesting, Imavov, with the way he was like taunting him. Did you see that? Like in between rounds, he would like chest to chest and follow him to his corner.
Thank
he was
you.
Fucking like,
Yeah.
He was like, "Hey, bitch, what the fuck?" And then he was talking to him the whole time. The ref would like have to separate him. So it was like, I was like, damn.
He gave him a hard warning for that.
Yeah, a
Dude,
couple of them.
Thank you for reminding me about that. I totally forgot about that already, and I did want to mention that specifically because I would say I'm kind of a Nasruddin Imavov fanboy right now, but personality wise,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have like a big read on him.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I was very turned off by that. I was like,
okay.
bro, you're already fighting this man in a cage. Like, go to your
Yeah.
fucking corner. Like, what are you trying to like? Especially since it was so clearly because it was stopped because Joaquin Buckley lost his mouthpiece. That's right. And the ref called a stop to the action, was trying to give him his mouthpiece, and Imavov was like, nah, I'm going to get up and get right in this guy's face while you're handing him his mouthpiece. And Goddard was like, whoa, get back, son. Like, I gave you an order. Like, that made me think, okay, like, I probably wouldn't, but I would be very, very tempted to just immediately take a point for that. Because
that was a little Bush when that mouthpiece, and you did bring that up. Because it's not like Buckley, it was like the third round, he was obviously losing, and he's spitting the mouthpiece to kind of like, it was just, it came out.
There was a time it happened on the ground where it was like, okay, you're doing that on purpose in that point.
Yeah. So, and then he was just right up on him, and he's like, dude, go to the neutral corner. And then he like gave him a little smack after the round too, like he was in that plus position, and he gave him like a smack on the way out, and it's like, why did you?
Yeah,
what are
you need to
doing,
fucking chill,
big
man.
guy? Yeah.
But I mean, I guess I get like he was representing France in this instance.
Yeah.
I think they kept mentioning he's a Russian born like French fighter or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe he was hyped up by the crowd. It was a really loud, super supportive crowd. They were complete. So I mean, I guess I could see where if you get like the extra boost of confidence, you just might maybe feel invincible. But yeah, as a if I was a referee, that's one of those things where it's like, well, bro, like you have to literally be trying to break the rules right now because I told you to stop and you just decided to not listen to me. Like, ooh, I would want to take a point instantly. But
yeah, and what it it looked pretty like it was going well for him, but I'm not sure. You said you watched the replay, but
Right.
and I'm not sure exactly the stream I got. I think the stream that I got was like through the ESPN Plus app. So it kind of like they don't go to commercial and they don't censor things. So I don't know if it was like a European stream or the app stream, but they just go to the corners. And in that third round, they went to Joaquin Buckley's corner, and then the cornerman's just like, "Do you see what the fuck he's doing to you? Do you see?" He's like, "You're gonna let this fucking guy do that to you? You're gonna let this fucking guy he's not just gonna beat you; he's gonna embarrass you like that. He's acting like a bitch. Are you a bitch?" And then Joaquin Buckley's, "I'm not a fucking bitch." And he's like, "Go out there and knock him the fuck out." And then Joaquin Buckley goes, "Bet, fuck yeah, fuck this guy." And so it was like, okay, if you would have just been respectful, you got the guy's back, you're kind of in a plus dominant position to end the round, just get up, go to your corner. Nope, he fucking says some shit, smacks him in the head. And this is not going to work. And then when you got a guy who's a plus athlete, who's way more athletically gifted than you are, why give him that mental edge? Why give him that little bit of fuel that he can just pull out in the third round, where it's not going to be like a takedown attempt that you're just going to stuff? It could be the craziest kick you've ever fucking eaten.
Yeah.
And it was very fucking close. There's a few really close punches, and there's a few flurries that he threw that like just missed or just kind of glanced, where it could have got real bad for Imavov.
Yeah,
and it was real touch and go at the end.
Yeah, and Imavov, another guy who kind of like uses like almost like a karate, like a bladed stance, also too.
Yes.
Where a couple of those dodges were not the I'm not even there for it. It was the I'm gonna lean back and you're barely gonna miss this kick by like an inch type of like head movement dodge.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely can't count out Buckley, and that's kind of scenario where we've literally seen him throw the craziest, most like low percentage kick in the world and get the dub for it. Yeah. So yeah, like for as much criticism as I gave to Buckley, yeah, like you said too, like I do admire that, and that he's a guy who can get worked up by his corner like that, because I don't know, I like fighters who are coachable. So I think that for that
apparently,
reason,
though, what I've heard or I read on, I heard in another podcast, and then I like to confirm I read it that he like bounces from gym to gym. So he may not be as coachable. I mean, maybe in the fight he listens to it, but I guess like he has a hard time taking directions in like training camps.
I've heard what fighter was it that was saying that about him? Because I heard a fighter, another fighter criticizing him and talking shit about him and saying that I think they were saying that he burned one of their coaches or something like that. Like
like he doesn't pay after.
He doesn't have loyalty. Like, yeah. And so that's definitely a point for concern. I wasn't sure like how to chalk that up so much as like, well, if he has beef with that guy, and we shouldn't be surprised that he's talking shit like that. But right. You know what, you're right. I did hear something similar to that. So yeah, at least on fight night he seems coachable, but there may be something there where he has trouble maintaining good relationship with training partners and trainers outside of the cage. But
because there's a ton of gyms, MMA gyms across the country. I mean, shit, there's like 2 or 3 in the little ass city that we fucking were in, But when you get to their level, the world gets real fucking small. And if you kind of do shit like that and you burn bridges, it's kind of tough to get to that world-class outlet, especially if you may not even do it to that specific person, but they know someone at the camp that knows someone that made the phone call, and then you're just like, well, fuck, I can't get in any good rounds, or no one wants to come spar with me.
Yeah. And oh, dude, you made a really good point about like how the world just gets really small really fast, because and that's a point like I've had to point out to some other people too, who get very on the bandwagon of like, oh, it's UFC and then everything else, which it's not like it's not true, just because of the kind of roster that the UFC commands compared to every other organization, but just the idea that the levels are that much different also is kind of silly, because at the end of the day, like whether you're like, oh, UFC's better than Bellator, and this is better than that, or this is better than that. All these guys are in gyms training together. Like in any gym, you have UFC guys going with Bellator guys or whatever because they need to train. It's not like they're separated by organization in the gyms that they train at. Also, so and that's what I do too. Like sometimes of like. It's how I follow a lot of WMA fighters too. Like I'll just kind of see who they're training with and who they're going with and who they're tagging on Instagram. On what?
I thought you were gonna say I follow them on OnlyFans.
Mostly from the bushes.
Yeah.
But no, like you
buy socks. You kind of garments that they're not using. I purchase them.
You kind of just take notice of the people that they're tagging in their stories, that they're sparring partners or whatever, and like literally it happens all the time because I don't watch Dana White's Contender Series. So like this girl that I'll be following for like a year or whatever on Instagram because they were training with Casey O'Neill or something like that. I'm like, and now they're right about to fight on Dana White's Contender Series, or you know what I mean. So yeah, the world moves fast in that regard.
It gets real small at the top. It gets real small and like. People talk and you can burn bridges real quick. And shit. Buckley could go to fucking Bellator or he could go to he's tailor made. We talked about it, last week or a week ago or two, or there's ONE FC. Like he's tailor made for that shit. That's fucking. He looks exactly like every other fighter on one championship. So.
Yeah. I think somebody in the seasoned MMA media space said that if you're ever flying into Las Vegas on the weekend or the week of a UFC card, that there's very, very likely a fighter on the plane, like on your plane, or their coaching staff or a UFC employee. Like it's like that. It's like the statistic that you're never more than like 3 feet away from a spider. It is just the hub. It is mecca of fight sports and mixed martial arts for sure. So. Yeah, no, like, and I think it was also, and I'm blanking on our boy's name, John Anik. He said also too, like, like there may be different promotions or whatever, but everybody in this industry knows each other because we all fly in and out of Vegas weekly. And we are sitting in the waiting for our flights and everything like that. Like, no, we're all there. Like you see, all most of the consumer sees is once the cameras are rolling and everybody's in their positions, like playing their role. But no, it's a big open world. But anyways, we can move on now to UFC 279, which a lot of people are.
Nathaniel Wood, Charles Jourdain was a good fight. Nathaniel Wood's a very good fighter. Just watch out for that guy off of this last card.
Anything else you want?
Sorry. No, that's it. I just wanted to derail my transition
for it. No,
absolutely not. I just didn't want to gloss over me kind of like pointing that out. Mm-hmm. That Nathaniel Wood's a very good fighter and will continue to be a very good fighter.
So, I'm just being awkward because I didn't know how to add on to it. But I was trying to think like, okay, was there anything else? Because I think I did see the Abus Magomedov fight. And I'll chop this up a little bit.
Yeah.
And that dude, like, he ran through.
He's. Dustin I guess he's like mythical character, right?
Mm-hmm. German fighter, I think he was.
And I guess like they said, like he keeps getting hurt, or he can't get work visas, or something happens with his family, and he just can't fight. It's like real. But once he is able to, they said he's just gonna like hot knife through butter, and I'm just like, okay, well, okay. And then he just like annihilated this guy. He like folded him up like a fucking Men's Warehouse fucking rental that you're just like stuffing in the bag to get back. He's just like, oh, you just get down there. It was that was quick as fuck.
And his previous, I think the only reason I kind of like noticed and paid a bit of attention is because he'd been in the PFL for a bit, which I hadn't seen him fight in the PFL. And then I saw that his last fight was at KSW. So I immediately saw KSW and I was like, ooh, like who's this guy? But he only has the one fight. Yeah, but he only has the one fight in KSW. But yeah, that guy looked like a bit of a world beater. What weight was that at?
They said there's like a crazy documentary about him that like explains like how why he isn't bigger than he is now, which I like kind of earmarked to go back and watch.
Middleweight. So, yeah, fucking, we could use that depth at middleweight. That's a fun guy to have in the division right there.
He
Middleweight.
definitely had the uh, God damn it, Magomed Sharapov fucking vibe to him.
Let me switch over to my UFC 279 notes. All right, UFC 279 fights that we'll probably be covering on this card: Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez, Li Jingliang versus Tony Ferguson, Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz at the top of the card. A lot of welterweight action going on here. For this one, I kind of want to go in reverse, or well, actually in chronological order. Instead of starting off in the main event like we usually do. We'll save that stuff because I think that's going to be the really juicy content. So we'll save that for a little bit later. First, we'll talk about Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. This could be a fun fight. Both guys are heavy punchers. I don't think we should rule out that grappling may be a factor, but it's hard to predict who would initiate the clinch or shoot for a takedown if that happens. It'll probably depend on who gets hurt first. But I think I'd slightly favor Rodriguez in the clinch or on the ground. Holland is certainly squirrely as hell, and he's effectively nullified like the submission threat of other really dangerous fighters like Jacare. But when it comes to
That's a big like
there's that guy,
one of the greatest guy.
But when it comes to just pure ground control, we've seen him shut down by wrestling from Brunson and Vettori.
Right.
Now, of course, it should be mentioned that those guys are middleweights. But interestingly enough, this fight is also going to be contested at a catch weight of 180 pounds, which is something I haven't really been seeing reported very much. I wasn't aware of that. I just assumed that this was
There's a couple of catch weight fights on this card, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying by default. I don't actually know.
Yeah.
I'd have to look into that. Oh, I see a 195 fight. No, I just misread that. But anyways, so I'm not sure if that whole catch weight thing is going to play much of a factor. I don't really see it being much of a factor into how I forecast this fight, to be honest. In the stand-up, where I think this fight will play out, I'm giving the edge to Kevin Holland, who has a 7-inch reach advantage. And
that's wild.
Yeah.
That is just, I saw that too. And that's just like almost insurmountable. There are certain things in fighting, weight and reach is almost insurmountable because you can be smaller and built a little more, built weird and still kind of be able to hold your own. But when you have that much of a reach advantage, that is wild.
Especially when you're a guy who knows how to use it and you throw straight punches like Kevin Holland does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and for my money, I think Kevin Holland is faster. I think he's the more accurate puncher. Oh, I don't think I checked his stats. He is the more accurate puncher, about 4%, not like super dramatic, but it's there. I think as far as how they match up specifically, I think he's more accurate. He has a right cross from hell, and seemingly more power in his hands than Rodriguez. That last metric, it could be hard to kind of like verify since Kevin Holland has more fights, more experience in general than Rodriguez, and they only have the one common opponent in Tim Means. But you're like, I think to my eyes, I think Kevin Holland has the more difference-making power.
And what you just said is what makes, outside of the reach, is the most telling thing is the experience and who's been the most active lately. There isn't really anyone on the roster as active as Kevin Holland, and that and not just that. Okay, that's one thing in and of itself, but D-Rod has been injured and inactive.
Yeah.
So that's so much of a huge parity. So that's something that really grabs my attention is one guy just, you can't get him out of the cage, and then the other guy you really can't even get him to train. But it's not his fault. It's not like he doesn't want to. He's just hurt. It's nothing you can control. So it's not like a slight, but it's a fact still though.
Yeah, it has to be. You have to take it into consideration. When they do step into the cage, it will be about a year and a little over a year since the last time Daniel Rodriguez has fought. His last fight was on August 28th, 2021 against Kevin Lee. I believe that was Kevin Lee's last fight in the promotion.
That was a damn good fight.
Yeah, so it's been a little while since he's been in there. He's been recouping from some injuries. I think it's also worth noting that Daniel Rodriguez fights as a southpaw. But then we've also seen Kevin Holland deal with southpaws and Joaquin Buckley, Charlie Antiveros, and Tim Means. So I don't really think that in this specific scenario that Daniel Rodriguez's southpaw style is one that's suddenly going to give Holland problems.
Yeah.
Also worth noting, Daniel Rodriguez has never been finished, and I don't necessarily. I'm kind of bearing the lead here. I'm picking Kevin Holland for the win, but I don't see that changing in this scenario. Ultimately, I see it being a closely contested fight with Holland landing the more impactful strikes and probably earning a decision victory. A win for either guy here will probably help them move to just inside the top 15 of the division. And for Rodriguez, that probably means he'd be in a good position to potentially fight someone like a Neil Magny or maybe even a Michel Pereira. For Holland, who has the more proven star power, and that the UFC has shown they're more willing to match make for him based on more on ratings and then accomplishments.
And the fact he's down to jump in late notice,
short notice, yeah, he's game
for whatever reason. That's just like their fucking barometer. It's like, you want to put your body on the line in a very tough thing that's medically could end your life, that could really fuck you over for the rest of your life. Yeah, that earns points with us, bud.
Yeah,
jump on in.
And I wish they would award that with more money. Oftentimes what it ends up being is like, okay, that we're really happy to see that you're willing to do that. We will reward you.
Cool about you.
Yeah, Dana will say something cool about you in the post-fight scrum, and they will reward you with more opportunities to do that. Basically.
Yeah. This guy likes taking like crazy ass wild risks with his health. Fuck yeah, dude, we'll do it again.
Yeah, let's have you fight a fucking Brazilian jiu-jitsu phenom on 2 weeks' notice.
Right.
Now for like I said about Holland, a dominant win here for Holland could mean virtually anything. Like he could end up fighting anybody from the number 5 of the division to the number 15, possibly. Like if Kevin Holland like straight up gets a highlight reel KO of Daniel Rodriguez here, like. Still unlikely, but if George Masvidal suddenly decided like, yeah, give me a high profile fight against a guy who's kind of like low, much lower ranked than me, then like Kevin Holland could like slot into that position perfectly.
And it pops on a poster. Kevin Holland versus Jorge Masvidal or someone of that ilk pops on a poster.
Absolutely.
And Kevin Holland pops on posters that he's not even supposed to be on sometimes, So like he's just that good on a fucking poster. So
yeah, and then he's a guy that they're kind of grooming to be on on broadcasts and stuff too.
And he does a good job.
He does not bad.
Good job.
Yeah, he's had a lot of opportunities lately to speak to the media. Not that he doesn't find
he fights
plenty of opportunities to speak, but yeah, you knew where I was going with that. He's over here. Stopping like potential mass shooters and stuff like that, and people pulling guns out at restaurants and shit. So credit on him for keeping a level head after that kind of shit, because it's seemingly following him around. It's crazy like how many like similar type situations he's been in very recently, and emotionally he's good, because I think like even if I had done exactly the same thing and did all the same actions and was kind of lauded as being heroic like him, I could still tell you it would probably be affecting the way I sleep at night.
Yeah, you're just out front on the porch with some whiskey, just like, fucking, I cannot deal with this anymore. Like, fucking can't be around fireworks.
No, dude, I would definitely have PTSD over it, man. Fucking credit to him, dude, for the heroics. I mean, a lot of people will probably look at that and for whatever reason probably want to slap a publicity stunt label on it. But I mean, it's easy to say that like from the outside looking in. But
remember when John Jones supposedly ran down a mugger or something?
Yeah, and a lot of people were saying that was totally staged. I think a lot of people
Shogun fight, right, or something.
Yeah, a lot of people were like wrongly attributing it to like maybe like something like Greg Jackson set up, because I know I've seen a lot of people doing a lot of revisionist history and like doing a lot of like writing fan fiction in their mind and being like Greg Jackson, he recognized early on that John Jones was going to be a problem, so he fabricated this whole thing to make him look like a good guy, to kind of like push him towards the light. Like, you need to fucking chill, dude. Like,
or maybe John Jones is just a pathological fucking liar. Maybe did that ever fucking occur to anybody? Maybe he's a sociopath.
I don't know. I think Greg Jackson is just it was just too much of the sport killer. It was just a whipping post for everybody too much at the time. Still, that might have been, that was before the sport killer thing. But anyways, yeah. So Kevin Holland, decision. Don't think he gets the finish here. Don't think either guy gets the finish, but that's just my breakdown and prediction. I'm eager to hear your breakdown.
I think Kevin Holland gets like a submission.
A submission. Interesting.
Second round submission.
I wonder what the line is for that. In fact, I have the lines up in front of me. That was something else I wanted to mention, but I kind of forgot. I'm seeing Daniel Rodriguez as the underdog at plus 170, and Kevin
That's
Holland.
Not bad.
Yeah, and Kevin Holland at about minus 190.
That's a surprise, just considering the inactivity and the activity of the other. So I don't know if that's based off of like sharp money, like people that kind of like, if you know, you know, and or if people are because sometimes these lines and they get manufactured to keep the money in a certain spot, to where like people just want more. It's just that they don't want it to be too heavily tipped towards the Kevin Holland side of it, where they kind of maybe know more or less like he's probably going to win, so they put more money on D-Rod early on to kind of keep that line manufactured close, and then when it gets closer to fight time, then they just dump the money on Holland. So they could be buying favorable odds there, which is something to keep an eye on, because for someone that inactive, that's kind of a red flag to me, to be that close of a but I mean, when Rodriguez is in there though, it's not like he hasn't really put up too many fucking like what the fuck kind of performances. So
yeah, but you're right though. Like you said, the general inactivity and the fact that the last fight he was in, which wasn't a bad fight by any means, but it wasn't a finish, and it was over Kevin Lee, which a lot of people were very down on already by that time. There's very few people holding on the Kevin Lee experiment. So I mean, I think maybe some of the more casual fans would like, okay, I recognize Kevin Lee, so he should beat this guy, but. For most people who are in the know and know how Kevin Lee was slipping by that time, I think that was a pretty easy fight to call. We can move on to the Li Jingliang versus Tony Ferguson backup fight. Oh, sorry, co-main event. Brandon, by the time I upload this episode of the Fight Plug podcast, it will be exactly 4 months since Michael Chandler rearranged Tony Ferguson's gray matter inside the octagon.
Scary, man. That's not good.
That's so too fast. This is a faster turnaround than I think anybody named Dana
he's
White.
Not going up against a wrestler. He's not going up against a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. He's going up against someone who has like a highlight package of knocking the fuck out of people.
Yeah,
and it's just like, oh my god.
Li Jingliang is quietly a finisher. Like I kind of don't look at him like a finisher, but I was kind of like looking into this fight and doing my research for the episode. I looked up his record, and like 7 of Li Jingliang's previous, like his most recent 10 wins were come by the way of a finish by stoppage.
He's a big fucking guy too.
He's absolutely
Tony's moving up, and he's not moving up against a guy who like who kind of like hangs around that walking around weight anyway. He's going up against a fucking big man, a big fucking. He should not be
certified.
He should not have been thinking about fighting until somewhere close to Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
like
the kind of knock, and I mean Ferguson had never been knocked out like that before, but I think the accumulation of damage is certainly something to be concerned about in this sport. Obviously, like you don't want to be a guy like You don't want to be a guy like Overeem, who's been knocked out cold in double digits, like probably like a dozen times just in mixed martial arts. We're not even talking about kickboxing.
Kickboxing.
That is certainly bad. But there's also something to be said for getting knocked out much later in your career, where I think that, and I mean, I would officially be talking out of my ass here, but I think that obviously to get knocked out the older you are is worse. Like the same knockout when you're in your early 20s probably isn't as bad cognitively as a knockout, right. When you get knocked out when you're later in your career, after that brain's been tenderized already from fights with fucking Justin Gaethje and
yeah.
But I said, I'm talking out of my ass there. I don't really know, but.
And the Leech is like getting better. Like every fight you watch, he's just getting better. And he's getting better at striking. He's getting better at finishing people. And his fight against Muslim Salikov, like going into the Muslim Salikov fight, we're watching it. I know we exchange videos of like just how good of a striker this guy is and how he just fucking derailed all of that. Like they will not be making any more of those videos because this man just fucking knocked him the fuck out cold.
Yeah.
And he's getting better. He's more self-aware. He's not like a cocky person. He's been humbled. He's been humbled so there's just it's a fucking like the perfect storm, like career-ending storm is just like building right now, and it's just like no.
And it's so obvious too. It's not like one of those deals where Tony Ferguson's going to go out there and get laid out, and everyone's going to be like, "Oh fuck, why didn't we see this coming?" Like, no, two fucking
the signs are all there, dude.
Yeah, two fucking idiots, and you and me and our
balls. Yeah, that we're talking about how they got scorned by fucking junior college English teachers. Fucking couldn't even fucking get out of the way of a junior college Latino arts fucking poet. Fucking can see that this guy's
the writing on the wall.
Fucking yeah.
Yeah, no, like the turnaround for Tony Ferguson, like I was gonna say, is a way faster turnaround than anybody would have wanted who's not named Dana White. And let's just go ahead and call this fight what it is. This is the backup fight for the main event. And that's to say that if Nate Diaz or Khamzat Chimaev should happen to get a last minute injury, that's where Tony Ferguson is here for, to be slotted in. And that's honestly what I'm fucking hoping for as punishment to Dana White, because it's so, and we're going to go ahead and shoot here. We'll go ahead and cut a promo on Dana White. It is so fucking pathetic what he's doing on this card. He is basically guaranteed that he can use.
Thank you for saying this, man. Thank you. I didn't know how it was in my head, like scattered. I'm such a fucking Dalmatian, scatterbrained, that like I didn't know exactly how to make this point, but like yes, dude. Yes. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's cool. He is so transparently trying to use Khamzat Chimaev as a Terminator. And he's decided, okay, well, everybody knows he's, I'm not going out on any kind of a limb saying that there's a reason that Nate Diaz is getting matched up with Khamzat Chimaev in his last fight in the UFC.
Yeah.
But he's also set it up so that if anything squirrely happens, and we know how much of a, Nate Diaz is a fan favorite and everything, but I'm sure he's difficult to work with. Like to give, not to play devil's advocate a little bit with Dana White.
We'll talk about it.
I'm sure Diaz isn't the easiest guy to do business with.
No, absolutely not. He can't be.
So should for whatever reason this fight with Diaz fall apart, Dana White has guaranteed that he can have some other poor bastard who he hates to walk into the cage with Khamzat Chimaev, who will get absolutely tormented by this man.
Yeah.
And we've seen him try to do that he tried to do it with Leon Edwards. He tried to sick Khamzat Chimaev on him. That fight was already booked, and then it fell apart because of, I think, COVID. I forgot who in that scenario got it.
Was Khamzat got it.
Was it Khamzat?
Bad, right?
Yeah, that might have been when he tried to retire and fucking the Chechen dictator Ramzan Kadyrov spoke on his behalf and said, "No,
change your heart there.
He's not retired. He'll be coming back to Chechnya to train very, very soon." So yeah, no, it's pretty.
Why are you holding his mother's locket in your hand as you say that?
So yeah, but we're jumping ahead, and there will be more of this for Dana White, and when we
Well,
cover
to go
the
to
main
your
event.
point though, too, even if things go swimmingly and the fights go as they do, you're gonna see Tony Ferguson. Something very bad happens to him, and it's gonna be recorded.
Mm,
And Li Jingliang is going to have a highlight by all accounts. I mean, when you just see what they're trying, like you said, transparent what they're trying to do.
mm,
They're trying to set up a highlight performance where Li Jingliang goes out, knocks the fuck out of Tony Ferguson, who, and then that's the thing too. You and me are talking about it, and we do see the writing on the wall. It's kind of easy, but we're not a casual fan, and this is a pay per view.
mm,
Casual fans are gonna go like, "That's Tony Ferguson.
mm,
He just got knocked the fuck out."
mm.
And who knocked him out? Well, Li Jingliang. Well, who has he fought? Oh, you mean the guy right after him dismantled him, and he did that to Tony Ferguson? Well, then how good is Hamzat then? He must be amazing.
Right,
And it's
exactly.
like, oh,
You could literally see them connecting the dots. Oh,
yeah, and he's doing it, and then so like, and you just see it, and then like a casual fan can't blame him. They're gonna do that MMA math.
mm,
Well, the fight right before the main event, he just knocked the fuck out of Tony Ferguson, who's like one guy who. Look at this guy's highlights that they showed us all the way up, because they're not going to show the Hamzat fight in the highlight package in the
mm,
Splash Reel, the cold open.
mm,
They're not going to show that. They're going to show, and then they're going to say, well, who has he lost to? Oh, you mean this guy? It's so fucking, it is so gross. And they're doing it on the backs. Nate Diaz, I've come full circle on him as far as like how I feel about him or whatever. It is what it is. I was on both ends of the spectrum.
mm.
And so, and then Tony Ferguson will always have, I always have an affinity, but they're doing it on the backs of guys who have fucking busted their ass for this company. They've gone through fucking Ultimate Fighter, when Ultimate Fighter that still meant something.
Yes.
They were, and you're gonna do that to them. Like,
Those guys
God
came up
damn,
on
dude.
seasons of The Ultimate Fighter where you couldn't just tell me, oh, this guy's going to win the Ultimate Fighter. Like when they announced the cast, and 'cause nowadays they announce the cast and you're like, oh, that guy's going to win the Ultimate Fighter. So, yeah, no, sorry, I kind of interrupted you, but.
No, not at all. You're saying exactly what I was thinking too.
Should we? I mean, should actually, I guess, try to break down the fight in the cage, because a fight is going to happen.
Yeah,
and
one way or another.
Yeah, I guess we shouldn't completely count out Tony Ferguson. Obviously, this is probably the easiest fight to pick against Tony Ferguson. We're more just coming from a place of frustration with the powers that be, because of how dastardly it is to put this fight together
right now. He should not be. It's not that he can't. It's not that he's not good enough to win. It's that health wise, the longevity and the quality of life that he'll have remaining is going to take like a significant hit because of what's gone on here. And that's hard to watch when you see someone who's really dedicated their lives to entertaining guys like me and you for years, and you're just going to see like the quality of his remaining years are going to be stunted because of this.
People throw around the whole like I've shed blood, sweat, and tears for X, Y, and Z or whatever, and Nate and Tony have shed probably easily more blood than a lot of other people in this sport.
Yeah.
Like, Ferguson, like by far, like that's not just a saying with him. It's quite literal.
Right.
Well, I'll just ask you prediction. We've said what our prediction is, but is there a specific method or a kind of a way?
Some type of wild leg lock is the only way Tony Ferguson, like some type of wild ass, weird ass fucking, like shit gets dicey in a scramble, and there's like he can get like a toe hold or like something weird.
Hard, yeah, it's just hard because he's it's not that he doesn't really have a frame that could potentially fill out to welterweight, but it's definitely a guy who I would have imagined. I've never really had a good read on if I feel like Ferguson is a big or a small light heavyweight. He just kind of is a light heavyweight. Like I've never ever thought about him. Has he ever fought at featherweight that you know of, that you're aware of?
No, no, not that I am aware. No, at least no. Yeah, I could be wrong. So, but
But I know he's certainly threatened moves to welterweight in the past, but I think it has always been more promotional and stuff like that, like calling out like big name guys at
yeah, just to throw his name out there. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, we're talking about a guy who got into it with Fabricio Verdum, like, so he's certainly never been one to shy away from a potential fight with somebody, regardless of size. Yeah, I guess I'll go Li Jingliang by finish. I think he's going to get the TKO finish. I probably don't see him maybe putting Ferguson out cold. Hopefully not. Praying that we don't get to see this man get knocked out again this fast. But I see him getting the TKO win. I don't see him subbing Ferguson, and I just think that man, let me pull up Ferguson's record really quick. I want to see how many finishes he has by KO or TKO. Tony Ferguson. Let me pull up his win method, because Tony Ferguson, I don't need to tell you that he's a fucking dog, but when it comes to it's pretty evenly spread out. He's got 14 wins by KO, TKO, and 9 by submission and 5 by decision. But I'm not thinking about I'm struggling to think of instances where he's like where Tony's like one shot at a guy, like straight, like cold at a guy with like one punch, and it's always been like an accumulation of punches and ground
it's
and
always
pound,
there's like a
cuts
like a real
and
devastating elbow.
Yeah. A lot of doctor stoppages, not a lot, but a lot of instances where we looked at the what's happening on the screen and said like
he had like a pretty wild run there. I think it was like 2 or 3 or maybe even a handful of like just guys can't do it because of a cut. I know he did. That's like Showtime, right? Like Showtime Pettis.
Donald Cerrone, he had that eye injury where he blew his nose and fucked up his eye. Where are all the?
Because I remember they had that meme about like
Aaron Riley jaw injury. Fuck.
They had a like meme about like, look at the way these guys look after they fight Tony Ferguson before and after. And
what Tony Ferguson does to people's faces, man.
Yeah. I can't believe they're doing it to this guy, man. They're really doing it to him. Well, we think in memes, and as we're talking about memes, fuck the Strangle Squad. You can suck a dick. Fuck you. But like you just like that like. And then they stole another Breaking Bad meme, so let's just, fuck you for doing that. But like when Walt's like handcuffed in the back, and he's like, no, he's like slapping his foot. That's what we're doing right now.
That's exactly what we're doing.
Fucking banging our heads against the fucking window, like trying to get them to stop. But we're handcuffed and we're having to watch it.
Yeah, we're begging Tony to tell Dana right now that he'll keep fighting at lightweight and he'll fight anybody he wants him to fight and everything, but just don't make him fight this guy right now. No, that's hilarious. Let's go ahead and move on to the main event. Another fight that we're probably going to complain about more than break down because Nate Diaz is getting in the cage with Khamzat Chimaev, who, I mean, everybody knows Khamzat Chimaev is kind of becoming a household name, or as much of a household name as you could expect from the kind of fighter that he is, or at least the part of the world that he comes from, the language barrier, the difference in socioeconomic kind of, not that anybody judges based on that kind of type of shit, but it's just going to be a little bit harder for some of those guys to become household names. But despite that, what he's done, in his reputation precedes him. The three fights in a month that he did in 2020 that kind of like really put him on the map.
And their fights, like Meerschaert's looked better since then.
He literally
Liang's looked amazing since then.
Like, good. You mentioned Gerald Meerschaert and Li Jingliang. And I will admit, both guys who I've let Chimaev's performances over them like really affect how I think of them as fighters. And I think I mentioned that when we were breaking down maybe a Gerald Meerschaert recently, or maybe I was telling Michael about it because he fought recently, and I had been counting
GM3
Gerald.
looked amazing.
He looked.
It was like, this is the same
great.
guy, and then Li Jingliang too. Like, was this the same guy?
And I had watched, I had seen plenty of Li Jingliang's fights prior to the Chimaev fight, and it still made me think like, Li Jingliang's just not a he's not a factor.
Yeah,
he very clearly is.
Much so.
And GM3 is a guy who just wasn't really on my radar before that Khamzat Chimaev fight, so I didn't really know what to take of that. I mean, I could look at his record and be like, holy shit, this guy's had a ton of experience, but you see him go out there and get shellacked by one punch, and you see the power that Chimaev
it's so crazy too. Is like both of those guys, GM3 and Liang, they both were. It's kind of hard because there's just so much like space in my head to like watch fights, let alone interviews or podcasts, or just kind of like get to know these guys more than just what they do in the fights that they have. But they're just like the thing that's super telling is their fucking their sensibility, like their almost like their personalities have changed in these fights. They're just like kind of like, yeah, dude, I got knocked. Like Gerald Meerschaert was like, yeah, dude, this guy just like fucking slept me, and that was wild. I just woke up and I'm like looking at the ceiling of a fucking ambulance, like it was wild. And like Li Jingliang was like doing like sketch comedy at like at fucking interviews, or doing sketch comedy at like fighter like open. They have like those press conferences where it's like open to the public, and like Li Jingliang was like playing a character or something like that to like get, and it's like, man, dude, who is this fucking guy?
You have to re-find your identity once you've been abused by Khamzat Chimaev almost. I think, and dude, poor Gerald Meerschaert's been taking it on the chin ever since he took it on the chin from him too. Because obviously that is a highlight that got replayed into.
And there's only so much. Yeah, there's not a whole lot there to take for his highlight reel. So like that's the one that they have to use. It's not like you can go to like Shogun Hua's splash reel and like you can cut out enough to where it would be like amazing for literally anybody to have the fucking shit that's on the like editing room floor. But like there's just so little with Khamzat, and it gets you so much that Meerschaert's just like every other fucking time you turn on YouTube, he's on there getting like knocked the fuck out.
Or like if you're Gerald Meerschaert too, if you're on Instagram, like if you go to the tagged images,
the
like,
search,
you just see just nonstop you getting knocked out, and
the fucking robot voice, like, look what happens when you put your head the wrong way. Bang! And he's like, damn, dude.
This looked like a man versus a child. And credit to Gerald Meerschaert too. He's been a super good sport about it, because I think when Chimaev was fighting Gilbert Burns the day of that pay-per-view or that card, I don't remember if it was on a pay-per-view or a fight night, Meerschaert tweeted, don't forget to play the Gerald Meerschaert knockout highlight drinking game, where take a drink every time you see me get knocked out in Chimaev's highlights today. So that was awesome. For him,
though. Yeah, he's doing it like it feels authentic from him, where you see Kamaru Usman's doing kind of like, he's kind of doing the like whole like PR stunt and the fake smiles and the like joking about it, and I love those memes, Joe.
I think Usman is taking it great though too. You don't like Usman, dude. I
don't give a fuck.
No, I think Usman's taking it about as good as anybody. I mean, Usman's always cringy though. Like I'll defend Usman, but I don't like the dude doesn't make me laugh though. I will say that. Like a lot of the things
he tries way too hard. It's just like you're trying way too hard.
He absolutely tries too hard. I think when he was saying one of his promos or whatever, and he was like like I always say, I'll see you soon, boy. And someone was like, that's literally not what you say. That's literally something someone else
said that.
So that's such a fucking that's such an Usman thing. But But anyways, you could tell we're finding any excuse to not talk about this main event.
Yeah, there's nothing to say, man.
There's not a whole lot. It's really hard. Okay, so like anybody listening, and we've never really taken the time to give like our background in mixed martial arts or talk about like how long we've been fighting or when's the first card when we stopped fighting. But we've been watching since the beginning of Nate Diaz's career. I think it's safe to say both of us have probably seen every Nate Diaz fight in the UFC in the octagon.
More than once, yeah.
So we know what he brings to the table. We know about like some of the times that he's kind of like risen from the ashes, where we had counted him out and we weren't expecting him to do so well. I think back to like the Michael Johnson fight was where I think he called out Conor right after that fight, where I was picking against
the real
him.
Money fight, motherfucker.
Yeah. Where
Michael
like
Johnson, 6 degrees of separation.
So there's and then we've seen his welterweight run also, which is relevant to talk about here because he's going back up to welterweight, and he's spent quite a bit of time at welterweight now. But there is, he almost has two eras of welterweight Nate Diaz, where he was seriously trying to make a run at welterweight or trying to be a welterweight fighter, and that's when and I'll pull up his record, but that's like when he fought Stun Gun, and I'll struggle to think of some of the other names, but he's never
Masvidal, right?
He fought Masvidal, but that's in his second welterweight era to me. Yeah, because to me, his first welterweight run was when he was actually like just trying to be a welterweight fighter, and then there's the Nate Diaz money fight welterweight era where he decided, I'll fight you at welterweight because I don't want to cut to lightweight.
Yeah.
But like his first time at welterweight, he fought like Rory McDonald, and I think the Marcus Davis fight might have been at welterweight. Yeah, that was a welterweight fight.
And Marcus Davis is that Irish car bomb or whatever.
The Irish hand grenade, Marcus Davis.
Yeah, and he used to do the whole like fist out, boom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So his original lightweight run, he got handled by Dong Hyun Kim and Rory McDonald, and I still have images of Dong Hyun Kim where he had like a weird like they weren't calling it the Dagestani handcuffs because the dags hadn't arrived at that point yet, but he kind of had like a. He had.
They were still in
Diaz's wrist.
The old steam room together.
Yeah, he was on top of Diaz, like in I think like half guard maybe, and he had his wrist like Diaz's arm, and I'm trying to resist doing it on
showing
camera.
It on audio.
But I'll do it for you, where he like Diaz had his own arm, like he was almost like rear naked choking himself.
Yeah.
And Stun Gun had his wrist from like around the back of his neck, and he was just there. He was just being controlled. And Stun Gun was never a contender at welterweight or any kind of a world beater or anything like that. He was just had enough wrestling and the size and the strength to abuse Nate in that regard. So Nate just doesn't have anything for a guy with the kind of wrestling pedigree that Khamzat Chimaev has. There, I've said it. I don't think he has the power to put him away because we just saw Khamzat in there with Gilbert Durinho Burns, and if Gilbert isn't gonna cold Khamzat Chimaev, Nate Diaz certainly is not going to do it. Yeah. I don't really know what else to say.
And the thing about it is too, this is another one where it's like, I think I made the allusion to like when you watch a TV show, you can always tell who they're marketing to by the commercials. So.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, like this is another way to crowbar Conor McGregor. So you mean Khamzat Chimaev just beat the shit out of the Chinese guy that beat the shit out of Tony Ferguson, and then he beat the shit out of the guy that beat Conor McGregor?
Exactly.
Who is this guy? And it's like, my God.
Yeah, the casual line of reasoning.
This is like the casual math, and there's like nothing you can.
You want to be like, hey, look at the dates, though. Look at the dates. Look at what it happened. Look at what. Yeah.
Oh, and it's like you can splice together a little fucking reel, and it's like, he knocked out literally like as soon as McGregor said I'm not surprised, or as soon as Nate's not surprised, Khamzat got in and beat the fuck out of him. Like, nah, dude, that was like fucking 20 years ago, dude. Like Obama was the president. Get the fuck out of here.
If
Jesus Christ.
if I'm
I hate this. I hate this, man.
if I'm Cesar Gracie and Nick, and God forbid I'd ever be Jake Shields, but if I'm any of those guys in the corner of Nate Diaz on Saturday, I would probably be telling him, "Hey man, let's cash in on these fouls. Let's get them out of the way early, right back to back. Poke him in the eye. As soon as he recovers from that, kick him in the fucking dick. Always grab the cage. They will never take a point away from grabbing the cage.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. It is your last fight in the UFC anyway.
Kick him in the nuts, dude.
Who fucking cares? Absolutely exploit the rules to any potential benefit. And it's not even because either of... Okay, and we'll say this too. Because I think we probably need to explain it to anybody who might be listening who doesn't know us. We don't hate Khamzat Chimaev.
No, quite the opposite.
Yeah, like
quite the opposite. This is like, I'm trying to like make it make sense. It's like, yeah, I just don't know how to make it make sense. We don't hate him, like not even at all. Like for me, it's like quite the opposite. It's like we just want it to happen already. Like we're just like waiting for it to happen already. To where like it's 2 or 3 fights away from where, you know, like we were just talking about who are we talking about, like Robert Whitaker. We just want it to be there already. You know what I mean? He has all of that and more of, like, we're just talking about like he's just that much better than everybody. Who's the next guy? When can we see him again? Whereas right now it's like in that trajectory, we've seen it all already. You know, we've seen it. There's just so many of these guys I mean, literally you can just take your pick of guys that we've seen have
could you paint
pretty
the
close
picture?
trajectory.
Yeah. Could you kind of like, to give people an idea of the kind of mismatch that we have in store for us? Like, how would you compare it? Like, if you were to talk about another sport, like if you were to say like this isn't even like this isn't even like let's say for whatever reason the Super Bowl was booked. They had already figured out who the fuck was
not even
the
Super Bowl. Like you get it sometimes in like Olympic, so like US basketball getting ready to play against like, I don't know, like Paraguay, and you're just like, why?
But see, even that is a lot. Is kind of what's the term I'm looking for? It's a little bit hard for people who are even just fans of traditional stick and ball sports to kind of like get that. That's a little bit like out of a lot of people's like range, like because they're not necessarily maybe following like the Olympic level or like. But I was thinking more for like, and it could even come down to like position players. Not necessarily, you know, like team versus team, because it doesn't really work like that in sports. Everything in traditional sports is actually tournament based. So it doesn't matter if you want to compare like one of the worst football teams in the league to like the team that's going to be playing in the Super Bowl. But it could be like we're looking at like a third string quarterback versus Aaron Rodgers, like type of disparity.
And yeah, maybe a third string quarterback that had his moment in the sun. Like there's a guy like Marcus Mariota who's a backup now, and he's playing for Atlanta, and he's already like on his third iteration of his career, where he was a Heisman Trophy winner, all the heat behind him. Then he was with the Titans. He was their starter, young rookie who looked good, promising. Then he was the vet that had some good runs in the playoffs. And then it just got real shitty real fast, and you didn't know why. And then he was a backup for a little bit, and he was real good. And now he's starting for Atlanta. And now he's going up against fucking...
He's about to play the toughest
Josh
defense.
Allen.
He's about to play the toughest defense in the league with a banged-up O-line. Like a fucking non-existent O-line.
Yeah, and then his like wide receivers, like, look, he's going to go out there, but his fucking ankle's fucked up. And it's like, damn, dude,
you got no
good
tools.
luck to you, bro.
Yeah. So that's,
and not only that, like, no one gives a fuck. No one's gonna care.
Yeah. And well, I think what actually makes it kind of intriguing is that a lot of people will care about the actual Nate Diaz fight versus Chimaev.
Really?
Like,
See, I don't care about Nate Diaz anymore. I don't. I can't do it anymore with these guys.
I don't. I mean, I've checked out on Diaz as like a contender since. I mean, before any of this BMF belt nonsense. But
That
I
was
just
where it
meant
jumped
like
the shark for me. Was
yeah,
the BMF thing? It's like, I don't care about you anymore, dude. Don't
yeah.
do this. You're a caricature.
But it's just like, we make the comparison to kind of try and paint a more detailed picture for people who may not be as in tune with mixed martial arts, or if there's somebody who we would deem a casual listener potentially.
There are literally
right now.
some people who think he's bad fucking ass because he beat Conor McGregor that one time.
But it's because I feel like a big football fan isn't going to be sold a bullshit bill of goods and be convinced that
like a Thursday night football, and then they're just like, "Hey, Marcus Mariota, remember?"
Yeah, they're like, "What the fuck are you trying to sell me right now?" Shut the fuck! I know what I'm watching. I'm not
It's so
stupid.
transparent. Yeah. It's
Whereas in mixed martial arts,
after ads, and they're like,
yeah, on Saturday the T-Mobile Arena will be
happen.
jam-packed full of people who still think that Nate Diaz is a factor in this fight, and I think that's
a good portion of them. Yeah, and there'll be people buying the pay-per-view just because they remember he said, "I ain't surprised" to Joe Rogan after choking out Conor McGregor. Like, remember that guy? He's fighting this week, Dad. Let's get it.
It's the guy who slapped
like,
Dana White. It's the guy who slaps everybody.
Yes.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Did you see that? Like, there was like a feel-good story about Nick that came out, and they're like, "Oh, he posted it, but it's this really crazy story. It kind of delves into like what makes Nick Diaz tick, and what kind of guy he is." And it's a story about his girlfriend who committed suicide. And you're just like, oh, wow, let me read this. And like the first quoted line of Nick Diaz is like, yeah, so in high school I had this really hot girlfriend. And it's like, oh, dude.
Get a ghostwriter for this guy.
Yeah, dude. Like you couldn't, you had to take him word for word. Yeah, so I was dating this chick. She's fucking hot. And she fucking killed herself at this trailer park. It fucking sucked. And it really fucked with me.
Oh, man.
It's just like, oh, damn it, dude.
That reminds me of one of his old interviews with Sherdog back in the day, where I think they realized like what they had gotten into with this interview with him, and they just let him go. They're just like, okay, we give up on even asking questions. Like he's just gonna keep talking. Where he was like talking about fluoride in the water and shit like that, and he's like, and these kids, they're just like fucking putting that shit in them.
Yeah.
Now it's funny, like Nick Diaz is like a classic conspiracy theorist, and even me, who I tend to detest conspiracy theory, like I still couldn't hate Nick Diaz for it, because I don't know, there was a place where I guess I just get the sense that Nick Diaz believes in that stuff because he is genuinely crazy, not because he is necessarily dumb, and I don't know. That's the way I rationalize it, I guess. And he's in a fight where he gets punched in the head for a living too. So, I hope that that makes me think of that interview he did with Ariel like 2 years ago now, where he was just bad. Couldn't really tell if he was drunk or punch drunk. Slurring his words a lot, and he's probably a little bit drunk too, because I know, like, if you follow Nick Diaz on social media, he likes to go clubbing a lot, and you see him out in the club a lot. But I don't know, man.
He just wet brained. Him and his brother just wet brained.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, they would certainly still sound like that, even if they never fought a day in their life. Though it's definitely part of the lifestyle. The people that they're around. Yeah. Did you see that video of Nate Diaz kind of like torturing his USADA like tester, like that went to go visit?
Oh, they're getting high or something like that.
Yeah, he was like smoking weed and stuff, and like getting him on camera and shit. And the guy's like trying to put the clipboard over his face, and I'm like, dude, this poor bastard. I kind of felt bad for him. So it's like, dude, he's just there to fucking do his job, and he is just putting him on live instantly to broadcasting him to like 40, 50,000 people. It's like, this fucking guy didn't get enough piss.
Yeah. God.
Oh man. So UFC 279 should be a spectacle.
Just that guy that's getting fired and it's just like, you fucking blew this guy at the Christmas party. I remember you fucking stole you stole $20 out of her purse, bro. I was there. He's just like taking everybody down on the
Air
way
it
out.
out. Yeah, gotta air it out, especially if you're gonna go down just because you're trying to collect Nate Diaz's piss.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that we're probably gonna have a lot to talk about after this card too. I think we can read the tea leaves pretty easily on this one. I'm not too worried about our picks going backwards, at least on the main event and the co-main event.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of potential for drama. Obviously, Nate Diaz just announced his own fight org, Real Fight Incorporated.
Over under 2 fucking actual events that happened with that.
I was gonna make a very similar joke.
What did he say? He's the champ of the whole UFC. He's like, there's champs, but I'm the champion of the entire UFC as it is right now.
I'm the whole champ of this shit. All these fucking
what?
Yeah.
You're wet brained.
I saw Paulo Costa was like worshiping Nate Diaz for a sec, like right after that announcement. And I don't know if you noticed that I made the comment on that post.
He must be doing world-class troll job, dude.
Yeah, he's like, no, Nate Diaz is the best. He's going to fuck up Shimaev, and
the way he pronounces Chimaev is so funny.
And I commented on that post too, and I was like, just go ahead and translation, please sign me to Real Fight Incorporated.
Yeah,
because I mean that would be right up his alley. I'm sure Nate Diaz would love to have him, but yeah, you get a guy that problematic who knows how to be problematic for ratings. I'm not even saying
Tachi boy, dude. OG Tachi boy Nate Diaz.
Mm-hmm. I'm sad I never got to see him fight Tachi. I mean, I certainly wasn't. I wasn't even really like in tune with the sport when he was doing his work
outdoor, like 102 months
in the fucking sun, dude.
Yeah,
parking lot
in a fucking literal fucking desert, and you're just fucking some like godforsaken land, and it's hot as fuck, and you're just fighting by the fucking parking lot fountain at Tachi Palace.
No cover above the cage or anything. It makes me think back to Chell telling the stories about the Bodog fight when they had that card.
They should drag dudes to the hot part of the mat. Or
yeah, yeah. They had a fight on some random island, and they had a shade over the cage. But at certain times of the day, or whatever time of the day, like obviously the sun's not directly over the cage. So, and I'm just saying this for anyone who might be listening. You obviously know what the story is,
right.
But yeah, the sun would just be beating down on part of the mat, and like I guess they had a little spoken agreement among the fighters that since it was so blisteringly hot, that they would just avoid that part of the cage and not grapple there. But obviously, once the bell rings and there's money on the line, now you see a spot where you can put your opponent on his back and torture him. So he said it's
burn
exactly
the goldenpalace.com fucking shoe polish off his back.
I just love the idea that as soon as the bell rings, their bullshit gentleman's agreement went out the door.
Goes way out.
And every wrestler was like, no, I'm going to put you specifically there. Like
it was hard for me because we fucking I just done with him. Just done with it. Like not bad, not whatever. It's just you're just done. You know, like you have those friends where it's like, we were hella tight. We went to kindergarten together. We were cool as fuck. Mm-hmm. And then in middle school, you fucking burned me, and I fucking hate you for that. And then in high school, we were kind of cool again.
Right.
And then now, I just don't care. I see you at Save Mart, and I just don't give a fuck. I don't even care. And we both look at each other, and like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And then they showed like,
are we talking about
fighting
Nate?
At Tachi.
Nate still?
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure.
And like he was fighting at Tachi, and then it's like, oh, that's still him though, dude. Like, god damn, what a piece of shit.
And good on you to kind of elaborate on that too, because like to anyone listening to this might probably think like we are massive Nate fanboys and have been like supporters of him the whole time, you know, or leading up to this. It's more our hate for Dana White and the way he does business.
That's shining through.
Because there was and even in the face of that, like leading up to this fight, before this fight was officially booked, there was plenty of instances where I'd be reading Nate Diaz headlines and news and stuff, and about how he had been, in the same breath, saying that he would fight any of these motherfuckers. Just give me a goddamn fight already, because I'm ready to go. I'm out of this bitch. Like, give me my last fight. but also in the same breath saying, but I'm not going to fight just anybody. It needs to be somebody with it. And it's like, no, dude, just fucking sign a contract already, you know?
Yeah.
So
and then what did he say too? He's like, everybody made it seem like I wanted this fight. I didn't want this fight. I don't want to fight him. But I took the fight. And it's like, what? What are you saying?
Yeah, man. Get your build your narrative and stick to it. But that's never really been the strength of the Diaz brothers. Anyways, man, we're getting pretty long in it. Long in the card, or long in the episode. 2 hours, 30 minutes. Oh, tell me that's not right.
Damn.
I think that's right. It's right.
We started at 9, like 9:15.
About 9:30 actually. By the time we actually really got going. So
it was that whole fucking David Dominguez trying to be fucking what's his name? What? Gary Soto, the fucking fake ass Gary Soto.
Oh, it's so fucking hilarious. I've never even met this teacher, but I could already see him being the fucking bizarro Superman to Gary Soto's legit Superman, because Gary Soto is a superhero to me.
Yeah,
many of his books growing up.
Oh yeah,
I read a Gary Soto book as a kid before I even realized that Gary Soto was a Fresno-based author.
Yeah,
like I didn't pick up his book because I was like, Fresno author. No, it was just a book in my library, and I think there was some kids in karate gis on it. So I was like, oh, what's this about? I'll read this shit. But.
And then this teacher used to talk, George W. Bush standboy, and would talk like with this southern drawl, like I'm a conservative and blah blah blah. And then he would say, but one guy who I'd say would be Gary Soto. He would like get into like he would like do the fucking accent, like specifically put that twang on Gary Soto, and it's like, oh.
Hella Gary Soto. This is going to be so out of context, by the way, though, because like everything from the beginning of the episode before I gave the official introduction, I'm going to cut out. So everyone's going to be like, who the fuck is this guy talking about right now? Yeah, we were going on about a super shitty community college instructor that Brandon had earlier in college. You know what? Before we officially sign off, though, I did want to let me pull up the card, because I did want to give a special mention, like one fight that I'll tell people to not miss, especially if you're into WMMA like me. The second fight of the evening, Elise Reed versus Melissa Martinez. That's going to be a fun fight. This is going to be Melissa Martinez's debut. She's a Mexican fighter, 115 pounds. You know what that means? Scrappy as fuck. It's not actually exactly what you would expect when I tell you a lightweight Mexican fighter. She's not like full on fucking just throw all technique out the window and crazy brawling or anything like that. But she's a striker, and this is a striker versus a striker fight. Elise Reed has pretty good boxing. She lost her last fight. She got out grappled pretty handily, but this one should be a good one, because Elise Reed has really underrated boxing and enough to hang in there with Melissa Martinez. Look up Melissa Martinez on YouTube. Check out a few of her fights. She's a finisher. She's got 7 fights, 5 ended by way of KO and TKO for a strawweight. That's impressive. And she's a little bit of a sniper too. Like, she's not just gonna like constantly be throwing volume. She like picks her shots a little bit. But when she smells blood, she goes for it. And then I think that's gonna be one of the funner fights on the prelims, at least as far as the WMMA fights go, because there's not a whole lot else to choose from. There's Norma Dumont versus Danielle Wolf, making her official like UFC debut, because she had one fight on the Contender Series. Do you know anything about Danielle Wolf's boxing? Well, she's
38 or some shit now, or like it's like, oh, you're doing it now.
She is 38. Yeah, she's 38.
Whoa. Great time to just pick it up. Give this cage fighting shit a try.
38 with a lot of boxing, a wealth of boxing experience, I guess. But I don't know anything about women's boxing. I'll admit, like, I'm a big WMMA fan, but I don't follow boxing, and even less so do I follow women's boxing. So I was gonna throw it to you and say, like, hey, is there anything you could tell me about Danielle Wolf? But
trying to catch me off guard, and I go, yeah, she's just hella old and probably shouldn't be doing it.
No, I wasn't trying to catch you off guard, more just out of desperation, because I wouldn't know what to say about her. But her boxing record is 27-14, which, if I know boxing records,
now do her MMA record.
Her MMA record is officially 1-0. She's undefeated in MMA, Brandon.
Yeah.
It's worth noting. She's undefeated, and that's
Yeah.
a contender series win
Yeah. Actually.
over a 3-0 fighter in Tanisha Tennant.
Yeah.
You can't unlearn throwing punches. I'm sure that she has muscle memory. Anyways, if is there any? Not that you have to give a full breakdown or anything, but is there
No.
any fight
I
on
like
the
to see
undercard that you would
Jailton
tell
Almeida
someone?
just to watch Jailton Almeida fight. It's pretty cool.
Jailton Almeida, one of the few heavyweight prospects on the rise who is on a bit of a win streak. And he's fighting the pleasure man, Anton Turkalj. I'm not even sure if I'm saying his last name right. Turkalj.
Yeah.
But
Johnson
honestly, when you
Almeida
have a
bodied
nickname, like the pleasure man, who gives a fuck what your last name is?
Yeah.
The new worst nickname in mixed martial arts right now
The
for my
pleasure
money.
man.
The fucking pleasure man, dude.
Unless there's a cool ass fucking story behind how you got that name.
I would so hope that he used to be a porn star. That would be perfect.
Oh,
This is
yeah.
like, okay, you earned
Mr.
that
French Tickler.
All right, man. Well, if there's nothing else to cover, one very very last thing, and we talked about it at length last time, so we don't need to really get into it too much right now. We could talk more about it when we're closer to the actual fight. But Paul versus Anderson Silva has been confirmed for October 29th, so that's happening. And yeah, that's happening. I'm not really going to say much else about it. Brandon still thinks it's the fix is in and is expecting Anderson to throw the fight. And I mean, I'm not going to say it's not possible. I'm sure if
I think if you just go
Jake
back
Paul
and watch some of the wild shit Anderson's done you can't get it out of your head that he's not. I don't think he's past it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one of those moments where when you're in the shower and you forgot something you should have said and you're just like, fuck, I should have said that shit. It was like you had made the comment of he's rich, he has a nice house and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think he's invested that the right way? Why was he even
why is
this
he
isn't the
still
type of
fighting?
fight why isn't the type of shit you do for the love of the game? I stumbled upon YouTube video, it just went way down the rabbit hole of how these influencer boxing kind of got started, and some of them KSI, Sam Hyde, iDubbbz, these guys, how they do it. And there's this super sketch, and I guess Jake Paul's using this type of weird these contractual loopholes, and there's some weird contracts that get made in these. And not to say, because Anderson's way far away from that world, but there's some really weird shit that they can get away with legally, and these guys have been doing it for a while and kind of beta testing it against each other. So it's kind of oh fuck. I'll try and send you the link for it, but this guy kind of broke down how I guess this celebrity boxing has kind of gotten to this point, and they've done these really weird things with contracts and being able to pay each other, and legalities to where you're throwing the fight but you're not, but you are. It's kind of weird.
Somehow I'm not surprised that if you follow the money in influencer boxing, that there's something shady going on.
Yeah.
I guess my main retort about the Anderson Silva thing was just because, I mean, my perception was poor fuck from Orange Cove. So anybody who looks like they have money,
dude, he had a marble island in his kitchen, dude.
Exactly. His place, he wasn't lighting his home with candles. So to me, I feel like legacy is something that is important to Anderson still. And I know he had been talking about boxing forever, that he wanted to fight Roy Jones Jr. when he was UFC champ. So I just always kind of figured that even though he was going to have to take part in a little bit of this kind of geriatric boxing after his career, since he didn't get to compete earlier when he was still in his athletic prime, I kind of figured he's not making any kind of serious run in the boxing world, but he's still kind of treating it like this is me in boxing, and that he wasn't going to.
And anyone who would have did that, there's a lot of boxers that would still fight him and would still kind of like it would be a straight up boxing match where like if you're doing it for the love of the game and because you love boxing, this isn't
It's not the place to
why
do it. Yeah.
the place. And this, like, it just screams to me like my fucking property taxes have been insane. I made some really bad investments. There's a fucking Hyundai dealership that I fucking put some cash in, and the shit's just not fucking going. I don't want to spend the rest of my life.
Crypto, lost a lot of money on the crypto bust.
That whole spider NFT deal went real bad, and so it's like, god damn.
Yeah, a lot of people started to figure out that wasn't actually a bee on my clothing. That's actually a spider.
It's not the Mickey's bee. It's a spider.
That's such a confusing logo that fucked me up for a long time because I was like,
it looked like the Mickey's bee.
Because what it is they have to. It's like the fists and the face of the bee, and then it's got it's not a bee, it's a spider,
legs in the back.
But it's got the legs, but they're just black lines. So if you put it on a black t-shirt, the only way to show that those are legs is to still throw a negative white in the background in the negative space.
Yeah.
And of course it just looks like wings. So for like the longest time I was like, if he's a spider, why does he have a bee? Like no, it fucked with me.
Anyone who would do that isn't the best businessman in the world.
Sure to get ripped off by Jake Paul. I will say this too, and like because I retorted so hard on you about when you said like predict the fix. I think a lot of people might have heard that and mistook it for me thinking that Jake Paul wouldn't stoop to such and that's not the case at all. If I had it on good authority that somebody was telling Jake Paul that like, yes, if you offer the money, Anderson would take a dive. Like if he was fairly confident that Anderson would take a dive, I don't doubt for 1 second that Jake Paul wouldn't offer money to set that up.
Dude, him and like that dude Gary V we're talking about crypto. They created an NFT restaurant to where like you can only eat certain meals if you buy this like insanely high priced NFT, and like I guess like they just like ripped people off. Like the last NFT thing that they did just ripped people off like bad.
I was hearing that I don't know, I say they, but I mean like the royal they, not necessarily them specifically, but that people were making NFT vending machines for a while. Once for like you buy it and like those toy ones where you don't even know what toy you're gonna get and you just open it up or whatever. You just literally pop in your credit card and buy an NFT. And one guy in one of the machines, his NFT was literally just the color blue. Yeah. And so this guy thought that he owned the color blue all of a sudden. Like you could literally sue anybody using the color blue in like their advertising or anything like that. And it's like, dude, that is not even that's indicative of poor mental health to literally think like, oh, I bought the color blue from a fucking vending machine. That's illness.
That's the guy who is setting up this fight in a nutshell.
That's that. Yeah,
like this guy would try and sell you the color blue,
cut from the same cloth. Exactly. Yeah, that's the kind of show they're running, guys. I
put that together, and then I put Anderson running around behind a ref in Abu Dhabi, and I'm thinking, hey, just hear me out here.
I could feasibly have been because that's a fight that I saw happen. I was following Anderson Silva's career. So yeah, that was such a weird looking fight. I could be convinced that some sheik said, "Hey, here's $50 million. Try to not win this fight so hard." Because it's hard to see like what would a fight look like. What does it look like if, let's say, like you were threatening to kill Anderson Silva if he didn't throw a fight to Demian Maia, and you got to wonder like, okay, well, what do you do to lose to Demian? I mean, I guess Demian Maia is more obvious because you go to the ground with him and you let him submit you, but some of the other weird ones, like
the Forrest Griffin one was weird.
Talis Latis. I mean, the Forrest Griffin one was like the kind of birth of like the Anderson Silva that's going to try and style on you. It's like, I'm here to do Muhammad Ali things. But the Talis Latis one was very weird too, where he wasn't even doing as much like clowny showboating stuff as he did with Demian Maia, but he was just not engaging, just perfectly content to show the world that Thales Laetus doesn't belong in there with him. It's like, I'm just not even going to be there for any of this.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess if you were to say,
The
okay,
steroids
lose this fight by decision, and
his explanation for doing steroids is like, what? And then he thought he got off, and like he misunderstood that, you didn't get off. It's like a technicality type deal. And then he just like totally, so it's like, you can kind of see people's mindsets kind of thing.
the boner pills don't get you off; they just get you horny. You gotta get yourself off. Because I know he used that excuse too. And at the time, though, there was a guy in his camp. I think you even pointed him out to me, where it's like one of his main like coaching staff was this fucking very obvious shredded steroid monster.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, these are the people
and
you're surrounding.
He like died, right, or something. Like he looked like Bane, Brazilian Bane.
Yeah, he had like fucking water hoses for veins.
Yeah,
and he was like super tanned, like just ridiculous. Yeah, the guy looked like a cartoon character.
Yeah, and he was old too. He was like 50. But yeah, I see. And then the thing too, like, because we were talking about it, and we're just like, no. And I'm like so set in my ways, and I think, like when I talk with you, or like when we talk about anything, I can tell you're someone who like is very, like, like a sentimental type of person, and like things mean shit.
I cry so easy.
Things mean things to you. Like they mean things to you. And that's so like super cool, and that's like an endearing quality that I wish like a lot of people had, and I have it to a certain extent. Like I'm a super sentimental person, but I guess some of my life, some things that have happened to me, or things that I've seen, or been a part of, to where I just have no faith in humanity, like whatsoever, dude. Like, and so it's just like, I just don't, like, as much as I loved Anderson Silva, and at a point in my life, like, I'll admit, like, I was in a really weird point in my life where watching him fight was like one of the only things I could really even like look forward to at a point, to where now I can think like, oh, he's gonna take money, he's gonna take a fucking dive. So yeah, so I didn't take it as like, oh, it was just like, I just see you as like a real sentimental person who's like, if it was you, you'd be like, I'm getting in there. I'm calling every good fucking boxing trainer. I'm fucking you're going to do it by the book. And Jake Paul could never come to me and ask me to take money for that. To where like, I think Anderson Silva's like looking at the phone, and like Jake Paul's going to say something like, so how are you? Like he's going to say, how are you doing? And then he's like, so how am I going to take a dive? I was thinking in the third round, and then he's like, whoa, easy.
You got to give me the rob, Jake.
I bet.
Jake Paul, we need for a second fight though, Jake. Yeah. We need for a second fight. You let me win with the first fight. No, yeah, I guess I'd say you're right on that too, and I think it's telling because of how I came back at you. Also, immediately was like, well, surely this is because you're scared that Anderson's going to lose, which is me projecting, because like that's the math that I did in my head was like, okay, obviously there's some concern that Anderson's going to lose this fight in my head. I could be confident in all I want and say like, well, he's has this kind of experience, he's this much better of a striker. Anderson's going to fucking obliterate this guy. I know that there's a very real chance that Jake Paul is going to upset me for a long time. Yeah. And so I rationalized that by like, I get it, Brandon. You're afraid like me, so that's why you're
just let it go, bud.
So that's why you're coming up with this this whole like fixed fight scenario. But but the kind of money that changes hands, though. Anderson Silva's not a saint, but he is my Michael Jordan. Like I wasn't watching other sports at all, so I don't have anyone to compare it. Like there was a Reddit thread I read recently from some guy who's like, oh, I'm a newer fan. I wasn't around, for Anderson Silva's run or whatever. For the people who were watching it, would after not when he had already went on like a crazy long streak, but when he was still maybe like a couple fights into his title reign, he was like, well, how did it feel special? Like, did everyone already tell that you were watching something special back then? And most people were unanimously like, yeah, no, it was pretty evident that we were watching something special, even like, right after he beat Rich Franklin. Like, I think to most people, when I first started watching, Anderson was already champ, and he had just fought Travis Lutter. Like, my first Anderson Silva fight was the Nate Marquardt fight. So I had already, like, it was building up to the Nate Marquardt fight already. Like, it was booked when I first started watching, I think. And I had already, before that fight came around, I had already gone back and watched the Chris Lieben fight, the Rich Franklin fight, the Travis Lutter fight and stuff. And so, like, even watching that, like, seeing what he did to Chris Lieben and the fact that he got an immediate title shot after beating Chris Lieben. It's not like Chris Lieben was good, like he was a factor on Tough, on The Ultimate Fighter, but he's now also not the guy who you earn a title shot for beating, even at that time. So I think everybody recognized that it was special, but I think for like somebody in that thread said like, no, this was like kind of like our Michael Jordan for MMA fans, because there was even the sense that like we're not necessarily going to get this often, and it was kind of rare that we had it in two divisions like right next to each other at the same time, with the kind of champion that GSP was and Anderson Silva at the same time. But and like Anderson Silva was putting in the kind of performances that professional fighters daydream about. It's kind of like what I said, because it's like it's like you mentioned, like the whole idea of like you're thinking about it, an argument you had in the shower, like later on, and thinking about all the things that you could have said and everything. Like the way some of Anderson's performances were unfolding is kind of like how a fighter would imagine it. Like, let's say you came up short in a fight, and it's like, if I'd only done this, and I would have done this to the guy, and then everybody would have been fucking cheering him on. Like Anderson Silva was actually just going and doing that.
He was just doing it
on the first run around, like it was natural. Like he already knew everything that his opponent was going to do, and it's crazy. I mean, and going back and watching it, it might not even feel as special to someone because it's in hindsight, you already know what the results are and stuff. But yeah, special time. I'm glad I started watching this sport when I did.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have held on if I would have started watching too early. Like if I would have started watching around like 2002, I'm not sure if the sport would have really like kept me. Like if it would have got its hooks in me like it did when I started watching around 2006.
It was like BJ Penn that really got me, like just how much better BJ Penn was than everybody. Where BJ Penn would, like prime BJ Penn would kind of not be middle of the road, but he'd be like a top 5 type of guy. But at that time he was like top of the top of the top. And then Matt Hughes and GSP was so fucking badass. Like for me, that was what. And then Anderson came, and it was like, oh, okay. And then I had seen Pride. I did not see his Pride fights, but I had seen like when he came out dancing like Michael Jackson, and like I had seen like the highlight package of it. And so I think, I think that's where a lot of people like yourself, like he got it off. And then the thing for me too was like seeing where it almost derailed it for me was when he fought Lieben, because I had watched that like live, that Ultimate Fighter with Chris Lieben, and I was like, that guy, what the fuck? Like everyone's all fucking wet because he beat that guy. Like that guy literally was pissing in people's beds. Like what?
Yeah. Even me being almost a brand new fan too, I was kind of thinking like, I mean, it was very, very impressive. It was a complete shutout, hit him with everything, got hit by nothing type of performance, but it was still like, but it was still Chris Lieben. Like even me being a super, super new fan, I was like, well, of course that he should beat that guy like that. Like,
the guy that wore Airwalks on fucking, the guy like unironically wore Airwalks.
And I just remember the promo too about how Lieben was talking about how he's going to send him back to Japan where the competition's a little easier and stuff like that. But by that time, it had already been like already perfectly like the super cut for me to watch, where it's like it goes from him saying that to the old school like black and white like pre-fight like fighter quotes and stuff like that to just the Spider absolutely shellacking him. And yeah. Good stuff, man. Well, let's put a bow on it. We're going crazy long. I don't want to keep you up too much later. Closing thoughts. I have none. If you do, say your piece.
No, I'm good.
Folks, thank you again for joining us on this very special edition of the Fight Plug Pod. We will be back next week, of course, to give our thoughts and our recap.
If you like good memes, go on our Twitter at Fight Plug Twitter, and then just see that there are some large accounts that just steal, and there's nothing you can fucking do about it.
There's not a whole lot we could. We would
but it's pretty funny to
shouting
think, like,
into the wind if we did.
Just shit that makes me. I just like sometimes I just make memes to make Kenny laugh or to make Ephraim laugh, and I just like I don't care like who and it's just and then like wait this fucking page with like 300 and some thousand followers fucking just decided to steal that shit. Like what the fuck?
And it has 1,400 likes on it when ours only has like 17.
0.
Like
yeah, I think between all of our social medias it has like maybe 12.
And I want to like I that's why I made that joke too. Is like those are our fucking likes, man.
Yeah, dude, we take those back. Like who can we talk to?
I would have thought. I kind of would have thought I would have been flattered when we like saw our first instance of someone like jacking a meme from us.
Yeah,
and that was not the case. No, I was not flattered at all. I felt violated. Funny. No, and I think we should steal their memes. At least one of them.
Nah, because it's like by the time we get to it, it's like fourth hand. Because you just know that they're just stealing. Because like I said, like
it really can only go one way. Yeah, because
like, they take
you only get that big as an MMA meme page if you are taking memes, original memes from smaller creators. Like
and they just change words. Like it's that whole, and I think again too, you can filter like who does that on? There are some
the fat Jewish.
Yeah, well, no, yeah.
Fuck Jerry.
Yeah. No,
like,
but I meant like the good
examples.
ones. Like you get like Sunny Side Up. Those guys do like everybody fucking steals those. There's still those guys' premises.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or you can even go on like Reddit Me IRL, where it's like, oh, that's like the fucking like what's the word for it? Like that's like the base of like the dough. That's like the yeast.
You've hit meme bedrock.
Yeah, and then like someone kind of like twists it this way, and then someone twists it that way, and then by the time it's on like Fuck Jerry. By the time it gets to there, but it's been like deep fried so many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, there's meme templates they're called templates for a reason because eventually like the memes just kind of belong to the people. It's not like you can only hold on to like if you don't want any of your memes to go viral if you absolutely want nobody to ever take the image that you used and use it for another meme. But
you wouldn't want it to be like a meme that you sent of like your kid playing t-ball and like you send it to like your cousin and you're like that feel when you miss the ice cream truck and like it's your kid running to first base of the t-ball and like someone steals it and uses it and like now everybody uses it. Like that's different, but these guys are just pieces of fucking shit.
To death to them. Death to the Strangle Squad.
Yeah, but I'll still probably pull them.
There's a reason I was following them already. All right, guys. All right, let's put a ball in it. Brandon, have a good night. Everybody that's listening, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. See ya.